Tales of Wells Fargo, starring Dale Robertson, usually seen at this time, will not be seen tonight so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
America's #1 Comic Con is back! Meet actors from TV, movies, anime, comic book creators too! Shop for comics, toys, and more! Dress up as a hero, Terrific Con! August 8th through the 10th at Mohegan Sun! Tickets on sale now at terrificcon.com!
Kingdom Come is 4 separate issues, 48 pages apiece. It was an all-immersive kind of lifestyle for me.
It blew people away. I mean, this was the most sought-after book there was.
This was something very new, very different.
No one had seen anything like that at that scale before.
It was amazing.
I never thought from anything that people would still be talking about this book 25 years later.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress with you. Always happy to welcome Jerry Ordway back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, man.
Hello there.
Excited to see you in a couple weeks at Terrificon.
Yep.
As always.
It's coming up too fast.
I hear you, man. I was saying we're both not at San Diego, but I'm glad we're spending time. There's been a couple interesting nerd weeks. Were you out, Jerry, for the Superman premiere in LA?
No, I got invited, but I didn't want to spend my own money to go out there. It's a personal choice.
But you did visit the set, right?
Yeah. I got to go last year in. I guess it was the end of April of 2024, and that was paid for by, I guess, maybe the movie production and DC. I can't remember how it worked, but that's the only way to travel is when someone else is paying for it.
You don't have to tell me, man. I'm absolutely with you. Absolutely. How'd you feel about the movie, Superman?
I liked it. I think I went into it with too many expectations. And that happens because, my brain is always thinking about, like, how would I write this? How would I do this story?
Sure.
So I think I had higher expectations of stuff that I saw on the set, and it's kind of like seeing Star Wars and, your brain is like, oh, this is what the Clone Wars is going to be, or this is what. So, I do admit that I think I went in with higher expectations and I was a little disappointed. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. But I do feel like, for me, again, it's like an unreal expectation, but using the John Williams music kind of reminds me of how much I love the John Williams movie. I mean, the first Superman movie with that, I still get, even watching it on video, I still get chills when the credits start rolling and you see the screen open up and you hear the bum, 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 and the names flying past. So I didn't feel that in this one, and I kind of wanted to, I guess I didn't feel like the music really punched it in the places it needed to, but I enjoyed it. I really liked the Justice Gang. I liked I thought Mr. Terrific was great. I like Metamorpho a lot. The cast of characters, the actors were all really good. I mean, there was great chemistry. But I'd seen that on set, so that wasn't a surprise. I knew, Lex Luthor would be suitably creepy, and I think I made a comment about that. It's like you see him doing a scene with Superman, and you just want to smack him, or you want Superman to smack him. You know, it's the ultimate compliment to any villain.
I hear you, man. You know, I wanted to see more Daily Planet scenes, frankly.
Yeah.
And not just because, you know, Cat Grant is there, your character,
Yeah.
but also, you know, again, and I keep saying that they didn't hire Wendell Davis for a minute of dialogue. There has to be more that was shot that we didn't get a chance to see. Did you see the Daily Planet set at all?
No, because we were on it's called Trilith Studios. It used to be Pinewood, Atlanta. It's in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And we got to see the Lex Luthor's office set and the Fortress of Solitude, which was a huge set.
Wow.
When we got a tour, you know, it's the video I think was released this week, maybe on Facebook, and it's like just a little, maybe a couple of minutes of us walking around the set and seeing stuff, seeing the production offices. But at that point, at the end of, you know, April, I think they had a couple more weeks there, and then they were going to go to Ohio, Cleveland, and Cincinnati to film. You know, the Daily Planet was, I guess, the Cleveland bus station or train terminal or something. It's a historic building. So they were saying that when the production designer was saying that they realized they couldn't alter anything inside, but they wanted to film inside because it had just a great look to it. So they figured out a way to put the desks over the train benches, you know, the waiting room benches, because those are bolted to the floor. So they basically, you know, faked everything. They put it around the stuff so they didn't have to move anything. But the production designer, she was really great. She talked us through a whole bunch of stuff. She said that when they they wanted specifically to film the Hall of Justice from, you know, like Super Friends.
Yes.
And she said they didn't expect to film inside but they were given a tour inside. And she said the minute they walked in, they were like, oh, we got to use this. And they only did really use it in the, I think, one scene where all the Justice Gang are hanging out. But I respect that because, number one, they're filming in Cleveland. They're filming in Cincinnati. Cleveland's the birthplace, or not the birthplace, but kind of the birthplace of Superman. Since Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were there when they created it. So that's kind of fun. I mean, there's things like that are very good. To me, they're touchstones to the beginnings of the comic stuff, which a lot of times you can lose track of when they're making a $250 million movie, you know.
Did you have a chance to meet James Gunn?
Yeah. And I knew him a little bit from just interacting on Twitter. Like when Marvel had fired him over the tweets or whatever that someone had dug up. I reached out to him and, you know, whatever it was worth, I gave him words of encouragement, and he and I went back and forth a little bit during that time. And I even said, when he said, oh, DC, I said, you should do Superman. And I don't take any credit for it. I'm sure he thought of that himself, but it sounded like he wasn't ready to do it at the time when they offered it to him.
Wow.
They offered it when he was fired. Warner Brothers reached out to him, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm ready for Superman." So he, I think, zeroed in on the Suicide Squad because he was a big fan of the comic that John Ostrander and I guess Luke McDonnell and Carl Kiesel were doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's definitely a comic nerd guy, you know.
Clearly. Absolutely.
The movie has a lot of DNA. I feel like, even though it's spread out, there's DNA from All-Star Superman. There's DNA from the old stuff, but there's also, you know, there's little Grant Morrison, obviously, but there's also a bit of it that still feels like Byrne and the reboot and the stuff that I was involved with. So
yeah,
I mean, it kind of shows through.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you been to the museum in Cincinnati that is that facade of the Hall of Justice and everything?
No, I haven't.
It's amazing because it is one of those Art Deco works progress, you know, WPA kind of.
It looks amazing.
Buildings.
I drew it. I did a top 10, the Alan Moore comic. I did a sequel or whatever with Paul DiFilippo, and that was the top 10 police headquarters in that comic series. So I had a friend of mine who is a Ohio guy. He sent me pictures of the Hall of Justice from different angles, and I still have the pictures. It was just really cool looking building. You can't beat that, that era.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When Tony Moore was having his Cincy Comic Cons, I went a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, like literally a couple dozen of us would go and not only tour inside the museum, but of course we had to take photos out in front of it and everything.
Well,
yeah.
I think that to me, the appeal of those buildings is they don't look cookie cutter. They all have like great design. I love the arching curves. There's a lot of wood. I mean, it's basically a mix of whatever technology was available at the time to allow them to do the giant halls and stuff. But the wood gave it warmth. And most of those Art Deco, that type of building had that kind of warmth of like a maple colored wood, some kind of paneling, usually not beams as much as paneling or whatever. And I studied that when I was doing Shazam, because I wanted Faucet City to have an Art Deco. The whole city was going to be like an Art Deco experiment. So I learned a lot about Art Deco during that, research period. And it really, well, in Milwaukee, we're talking about Milwaukee off the show before. Yeah. Milwaukee has the gas building in downtown, has this giant blue glass flame at the top of it, and that was a Deco building. People forget how much really cool stuff was built in the 30s. A lot of it through the Works Progress Administration, the FDR program that put people to work during the Depression.
Very important, and yeah, we got a lot of beautiful art and artwork and architecture because of those programs. I completely agree. And it's I mean, that's the thing, like infrastructure doesn't just have to be doesn't have to be boring. It can be interesting and creative in the right hands.
And the good thing too, I mean, if you think about any of that, it's like comic people preserving comic book history. The various groups preserve those Art Deco buildings when they were at risk in the 60s, or the decades of progress where everybody wanted to build something taller, steel and glass or whatever. So I mean, I feel like those are all worthwhile efforts that have nothing to do with anything except appreciation of art, because it's architecture and it's the craftsmen who built that stuff. Not much different than the people who build any industry, but like it certainly relates to comics, because I think the early comics that they reprint nowadays, still a lot of that has a visual echo of that era of those buildings and the Art Deco style that was going on. So I mean, you could see it all over Superman in the Joe Shuster comics as well. So in his his art, everything has that feel. It has even a lot of it has that visual now, because I think it was always very warm color, that kind of color palette, and maybe that's kind of imposed on it because the comics were yellowed, the newsprint was yellowed, so it made all the colors warmer, but like again, it's just, I'm going on here, but like Superman cartoons from the ones in the 40s, those the Paramount did were amazing, and the color palette was great. But then I don't know if you had seen recently when they remastered them, a lot of the colors suddenly a lot brighter, because
I haven't seen. No, tell me.
A lot of what we appreciated was kind of like newsprint yellowing. It was film being yellowed over aging, a little dirty. So a lot of the warm color contrasts really were due to that aging of the film, because we you and I probably saw them in the 60s, 70s, 80s, so it was funny. It was like a revelation to see that remastered set, because it's like, the colors are very bright.
That's funny. That reminds me of how Night Gallery reruns kind of decomposed, and there's this kind of mildew kind of green to the film of that early 70s period. And I know I talked to Dana Gould, who did that horror show on IFC, Stand versus Evil, and he's a freak for 70s film like that in TV movies, and he purposely wanted the color scheme to match that kind of thing, to kind of get that vibe.
It's
So,
that
yeah.
nostalgia thing. I mean, there is,
Sure.
again, like saying the comics of the old days, whenever they reprint them, they're reprinting them on really nice white bright paper. The newsprint that they printed those things on, like especially when you and I were reading these things probably in the 70s, the newsprint was at the worst. It was at the lowest ever. It was virtually one step above toilet paper. It was so thin you could almost see through it, and it all had that like kind of a gray background because the paper was already kind of grayish.
Yep.
The old process, the printing process, used to use oil on the plates, so the oil would transfer to the paper. So while because it was the whatever that was called, it was these giant sheets of metal plates, printing plates. So when they first started doing some of this stuff on the flexographic didn't require that oiling, any of that, and that stuff was like you needed sunglasses to look at it because it was so bright. But the same is true now when they reprint stuff. They reprint stuff from that time. They could color it in a kind of archival way, but that color just bounces back at you off of that white paper.
Yeah. When you were doing comics in the 80s, Baxter paper was like the high end paper, as I remember from the time and everything. Did you have any series that did Power of Shazam or anything like that? Did it make it to Baxter paper?
No. Well, we had, I went from doing All-Star Squadron, which was on the worst newsprint, to Infinity Ink, which was on that great paper.
Yes.
That was, also by being offset printing, it was like, hey, welcome to the future, except the future had already been like 30 years old by that point. I often, I think of this, you ever wonder if the comics would still be being printed on those old metal plates if those machines weren't breaking down? That's the only reason they switched over was the machines kept breaking. They had a gazillion of these machines, and then they would just like basically something would break, they would cannibalize one that wasn't working for parts. And that's where flexographic came about, was that they basically were short of printing presses in that, I guess it was called the letterpress style or something. So it wasn't offset. It was still the way, I guess, newspapers would have been printed or whatever.
Were they printed in-house, or did they still go to?
Yeah, no, they were printed in, I think Sparta, Illinois was still printing them.
Centralia, as I understand it, that town. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was up until, I think up through the newsprint era, I think they were still printing them there because whatever building housed those, presses, then they moved, I think the offset stuff, it was slowly moved to Canada, probably in the later 80s, maybe, I don't know, maybe 90s, probably 90s, I would think. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we mentioned All-Star Squadron because, in your History of the DC Universe issue that you did you do with was Todd Knock the other artist?
Yes.
Okay, this is volume 1, everybody. This is an old Jerry sketch, but well painted commission that he did, which is great. But there's a lot of All-Star Squadron people, and of course there's Captain Marvel. We'll still call him Captain Marvel for the purposes of our discussion. I wondered because really beyond Captain Marvel and what you did in Power of Shazam, you really did flesh out Faucet City, and we saw a lot of the old Faucet heroes there. Do you know, like, who's still are they still printing Bullet Man? Like, does DC still use Bullet Man?
I think they still own it. I feel like they did. Well, Grant Morrison used Bullet Man when he did the
Seven Soldiers
stuff.
Yeah,
I think Bullet Man or Bullet Girl or Bullet Woman, whatever they changed.
Yeah, it was Bullet Woman in that story, but
she might have been in the Birds of Prey when Gail was doing it. I know that the reason I was allowed to use those characters was that DC had finally purchased the properties from Faucet. Previous to that, they would basically send Faucet $100, like a fee, every time they used Captain Marvel in something. He could be in one panel or he could be in a whole issue. It cost him like $100.
Crazy.
So when we were doing All-Star Squadron, in the time when I was drawing it, Roy couldn't get Captain Marvel. He kept trying to get Captain Marvel for All-Star Squadron, but because it was an added $100 to the budget, DC's like, well, we'll only do it if you have like a story where he's in it the whole time. and that didn't happen until I was off the book. So
Yeah. Geez. That's too bad. Because
Yeah.
I was wondering too, like, I like this Justice Alliance that is
Oh.
mentioned in the new history.
I did too. I thought that was really an intriguing idea. I immediately, when I was drawing the page, it's basically, for anybody who hasn't read the DC Universe thing, the Justice Society quits because they're brought before Congress, and it's kind of during the like an era of like the communist McCarthy era, whatever. So they quit and they leave. So within this retelling of the DC Universe, the Justice Alliance, made up of Comet Man and
Congarilla?
Congarilla, the Auto Man, who is like a robot man looking guy, Prince Rahman or Rayman, I don't know how it, and a character called the Cougar or Cougar Man.
And Sargon. Wasn't Sargon in there too?
No, it's Prince, again, Rahman. Or
Oh,
Rayman.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, some of these characters, I know I probably drew them in a panel or inked them in a panel of Crisis, but I saw this little tease and I said, wait, so they tried to fill the void of the Justice Society before the Justice League was launched. I was like, wow, I sent a message to the editor. I said, do you guys have a storyline? Because I would love to develop this, And they were like, well, I think it's just like a throwaway. And I'm like, I could do a 4-issue miniseries with that.
You gotta call Lemire and see, because what have you seen, Jer? Can you? I always ask guys that were on a book and especially ones that were on for a really long time. Can you enjoy whoever's on Justice Society now, or is it like an old girlfriend where it's like, yeah, all right, that relationship's over. I don't want to.
No, it's not. I don't feel like with the JSA. I've liked the JSA, and Jeff Johns did a great run, and
Guggenheim even. I liked what Guggenheim did.
Yeah,
and was that with you?
Yeah.
Because all right, because yeah. Go on.
I wrote it. We wrote it into the end because it ended right as the New 52 started.
Right, I remember. Didn't they have the Alan Scott funeral as part of your guys' wrap up and everything?
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, Norton, I want to say, drew me as the mayor of whatever city they were in, which is pretty funny. And he gave me a couple of pages, and it's like, that's awesome, man. I'm talking to Jay Garrick and Alan Scott. I'm like, I love this. This is fantastic.
Hey, you're the mayor.
I'll take it. I'll take it. That's honestly, Jared, and this is shame on me, everybody, because this isn't about me. But at conventions, and my buddy Chuck, who you'll see with me, Jared, at Terrificon, he's always with me. He's a good friend and he really helps me out. But he's like, it's like you're running for mayor. You kind of go around the aisles, you shake hands. How you doing? Nice to see you. Vote for me in November.
Handing out buttons, campaign buttons.
Yeah. So he always says it's like you're running for mayor. So yeah, absolutely, man. But no, I love what you did in the history, and yeah, I think there are a lot of story opportunities, and I wondered like how much. The history has. I mean, they have to always change it constantly, and everything, and reflect the new ideas.
Well, but, I mean, I don't think they've done anything. I was trying to think of this because the last major, at least documented kind of thing, probably was 0 Hour, where they actually did a history. Because 0 Hour ended with I think maybe 12 pages of like historical. Here's what happened. And you do need to do that. I mean, you can be a purist and not like an aspect of this or that, but I think it's better if you're reading DC Comics that you have that kind of framework for, knowing, because again, it doesn't really matter. It's all made up.
Of course.
And whatever comics you liked are still out there or whatever. Sure. So, but I think as a reader, it would be fun for you to go back and go, or, look at the history of the universe, the DC universe, and say, oh, I see that this is incorporated. This is different. If you remember any of it, there's stuff that's different than it was in Crisis. But again, you're retelling something, and that's how these things stay alive, is that they get retold every, 15, 20 years. That's what keeps them kind of relevant, I think, rather than being like the Lone Ranger or something where it's,
Yes, when they don't use a property for decades,
and
then they try and bring it back. And I know that Armie Hamner movie with Johnny Depp. Because it's like I remember being on a panel in San Diego years ago, and it's like, well, that flopped, and it's like Yeah, meanwhile, Zorro did just fine because,
Right.
you know, thank God, you know, there's been enough reboots of
Yeah.
Zorro over the
Yeah,
years.
I think it probably is, like you said, the fact that Zorro at least had the TV show that Disney had the TV show that
Oh,
was
yeah.
great, and I think as a concept, I feel like again, I'm not picking on the Lone Ranger because the same is true to me of like Flash Gordon and Phantom,
Yes.
Mandrake. You know, they've been published in newspapers, but the newspaper readership, I bet you the comic page readership is probably people my age or older, you know? I mean, it's just the way
Yeah.
it is. So it's
Yeah.
not bringing in a new audience. As a comic book, I think for whatever that age of the audience growing up with comics, there's still more access, I think, that kids can, latch on to this stuff. So, and I do think Mad Cave, I think, is the one that's doing that. They're doing a smart thing in that I think they're doing like a Flash Gordon Adventures type thing. And again, it's aimed not at the audience that's reading the comic maybe right now, but it's aimed at a younger audience. So I think that's kind of a smart way to try to at least reintroduce something. But
the potential's there, sure. And I think I just had Jeremy Adams on, who's doing the flagship. Flash
yeah,
Gordon.
and he's great. I liked his work on. He wrote the Flash for a long bit.
Yeah. He's doing great with Green Lantern and Aquaman and everything right now too.
I like the Flash Gordon from Mad Cave that they've been doing has been really good.
And and even Didio is doing the one that's based on the cartoon Defenders of the Earth, the team.
Defenders,
which is pretty funny.
The other one that's good is Dick Tracy's been really good.
Oh, I am so with you, man. No, I completely agree. And again, I'm a massive Dick Tracy fan.
Yeah.
So it's nice. Yeah, Segura and Mike Morisi, I believe, are the writers of that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Absolutely. James wants to know, do you think there are any plans to oh no, wait 1 second. He says, if there are any public domain characters you'd want to crack at. Yeah, that's a good question.
You know what? I think something about doing a public domain character kind of bothers me in a way, because it feels like maybe you're not ripping off a company, but in a way it feels like the original people who created them kind of maybe getting a little ripped off. I know that a lot of this stuff is 80 years old or whatever.
Yeah,
I just don't have the same comfort level on something like that. But I do think that characters like the one that I always liked was Black Terror. Cool costume. The concepts are all dopey. I mean, let's face it. The one that cracked me up recently, I don't know if you know about the reprint books, and I'm trying to think of the name of the company, but they've reprinted like all public domain stuff, like Blue Beetle from the 40s. They've done the Ghost Rider from not Marvel, the previous publisher.
Is it Big Bang or no?
No, art books or something. PS art book.
Oh, okay. I have seen PS art. Yes.
So I was at a comic store up in Cave. Cave is my regular store. I did a signing up at BoomTube Comics, which is further up in Southington, and the guy Dan had this big stack of the PS art book reprints, and his wife was kind of kidding him, and he was making a joke. He says, "Yeah, I think they're really cool, but there's not really an audience for them." So he's got this big stack, and I'm going through it, and I said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to take 4 of them off your." So I bought 2 volumes of Blue Beetle, the original Blue Beetle.
Dan Garrett. Yeah.
And I bought the Ghost Rider, which Dick Ayers was the artist on. There's some Frazetta covers from the 50s.
Yeah.
And I think one other, and I don't remember what it is now, but the one that cracked me up is reading the Blue Beetle. The original Blue Beetle is crazy. I don't know. I never was exposed to that version of the character. He's kind of like a mystery man, right? He's just like a normal guy putting on a crazy costume and fighting crime, but he's also a policeman. And I think it was like issue 2 or 3. He's at the police, the doctor, the police doctor or whatever. And the guy decides to inject him with some kind of special, Vita rays or something. And suddenly he's a superhero. And the concept is so funny that, they're just cops. And there's like a doctor who's experimenting. It's almost like, it's like the from the files of the Naked Gun or something. You know, it's so bizarre.
I didn't know that. Again, when I talked to Jeremy, I was catching up on I can't remember. I want to say it's either Aquaman or Green Lantern Corps, where Dan Garrett is back, and now and of course they've tied more into the whole Scarab idea with the Beatles. Yeah. So now he's the Silver Scarab, much like the Hawk's kid, like Hector Hall in Infinity. And on the one hand, I prefer Hector to be the Silver Scarab, but I'm fascinated by that Dan Garrett Blue Beetle. Yeah. And I love that did you guys at all use him in All-Star, or was that sparingly?
No, you know what? I used him. What did I do? I did something where I had to. He was in the Stargirl special that I did with James Robinson a couple of years ago. We had a double page because there was an old villain, and the villain was talking about all the heroes that existed in the beginning of the Golden Age or whatever. Yeah. And I had to look up Dan Garrett, but at that point, all I got was panels and internet search to see the costume. And I had uncovered James Robinson was like, use as many of them as you feel comfortable. And when I was doing my research, because the whole point of it was sidekicks, the idea of sidekicks. And I said, did you realize that the Blue Beetle, at least in a couple of these things I'm looking at, he had a sidekick? And he was like, I did not know that. So we threw the sidekick in. I don't know if anybody ever used that, but
Jeff did in that Stargirl sidekick thing, because Jeremy reminded me of that. I didn't know about his sidekick either. Keep going.
Yeah. So it's just funny that it's amusing. But the other thing about the Dan Garrett Blue Beetle, before they tied it into the actual ancient Scarab or whatever, much like the Red Bee, for some reason he jumps into a room and there's a beetle flying around, and it's like, so what? He brought a beetle with him, But like the Red Bee was like, we used to just laugh. It's like, okay, what's this guy's power? Well, he really have a power, but he's got a bee in his belt buckle. Yep. And of course, all criminals are afraid of bees. And similarly, they must be afraid of beetles. So.
I know, and I do remember like some of the group shots where you guys would have the Red Bee and All-Star Squadron and everything. Yeah, that's
a dumb character, but I mean, again, they're dumb, but they're cute in their dumbness.
But their design is interesting. I mean, when whatever company it was came out with those 3-inch PVC Justice Society characters,
right, yeah, I have that.
Of course, because my God, those costumes are so iconic, and they're so great to see. Yeah. So and again, great. I mean, fine, you've got the symbol, and now a good writer can come in. And that's why I'm excited for Lemire doing what he's doing. But yeah, man, I mean, and also just to go back to that period, were you the forgive me, I don't believe you were the artist on America versus the Justice Society
I was supposed to draw it, and I wound up being switched to do Infinity Inc. Back then I was going to ink Infinity, and Mike Macklin, my friend, was going to pencil it. And so Roy was writing the America versus the Justice Society for me to draw, because I was going to be able to do it in my spare time, right? So at the last minute, literally like before the first issue was ready to be penciled, I guess DC got cold feet about Mike Macklin maybe not being able. It's like he had not penciled a regular monthly, so they were worried about him hitting the monthly deadline. So it's like, oh, we're going to flip you guys. Mike's going to ink and you're going to pencil. So I wound up just doing the covers for that.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. But great coverage, Jared. Truly, that Ghost of Batman above, the JSA. And also,
of course, the Hitler one. So, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. Absolutely, man. That's funny. And I think my answer would be you, Jared. But James wants to know, who would you want to write JSA Invaders for you? I assume this is going to happen, right? Oh, I guess with the crossovers coming up, is there? Do we know if there's any plans for a JSA Invaders finally?
I have not heard anything. I feel like, and again, I can't think of anybody other than Roy Thomas to do that, because, I mean, think about it. The guy's in his 80s. He's still writing. He's still working on stuff. Yeah, I think he would be. I mean, that would also be like it would be like a culmination of everything.
For real.
career.
Yeah, 100%. You're right
I would
about
hate to
that.
take something like that from him, you know. But
I respect that. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what his relationship is with DC currently. If they would be willing to bring him back.
I don't know either. I mean, I feel like, again, that stuff, the Invaders and like the JSA All-Star Squadron stuff was almost probably too close to him. You know what I mean? Like it was his childhood.
Yep.
And I think in a sense, it's the, I mean, it happens to everybody. I think Byrne maybe went through that with the Fantastic Four. It was his favorite thing. And then when it turns, or when the company turns, it becomes more painful than it would be normally, in a sense, you know, because it's like you're fulfilling some childhood dream or wish or whatever. So with Roy, I think, especially with All-Star Squadron, you know, it was probably very, very emotionally hard, as opposed to just, okay, I'm losing a series, or I'm losing the background, the backdrop. I'm not, you know, I'm losing Earth 2. I think it probably felt more personal, you know, in that situation. But yeah, when I did a Captain America thing with Roy a couple of years back.
Yeah, I remember. We talked about it. Please.
And it was so much fun. I remember at the time thinking it would be really cool to do an Invaders, because again, it was, you know, that era is great, you know, the World War II era, and the idea of those characters at their beginning, you know, where they're fighting a world war.
Yeah,
you know, that's like a really dramatic thing as far as a comic. You know, I don't think you could get anything more dramatic, because maybe people don't know World War II now that well, but you know, I think maybe my generation growing up, we were surrounded by people who were veterans of that war, you know, so
sure,
it was hard to avoid it even when you were a little kid. And you got a definite, I mean, I got a sense of how important it was as a thing for the world, really, you
100%.
know.
Yeah,
so you don't get that except for a Thanos story, you know what I'm saying? On that scale, except this was real, and you're playing into something that was evil and real, you know.
Well, and also what I love about the Invaders, as opposed, and believe me, I love both groups, all three, All-Star Squadron, JSA, and the Invaders. But I really like, and they're doing it in modern Marvel and modern times in Marvel. Bucky is still running around with the Thunderbolts,
right.
And right now in the comics, Namor is in there, and
cool.
it's great because they're war buddies.
Yeah.
And I kind of like when Namor, you know, I don't mind that Namor's an anti-hero here and there and stuff like that. But when it comes to Jim Hammond, Bucky, and Steve, it's like, no. I know these guys. These are honorable men. I'll talk straight with them, which I love. And it's great to see Bucky in the same way that the Titans finally graduated to be adults now too. Right. And it's like, yeah, come on, Namor, it's me. You know, you don't mess with me. And he's like, yeah, you're right, James.
Another thing though, since I had drawn the Captain America one, then I did a Submariner one shot. And I talked to Roger Stern. It was a couple of years ago. We were trying to pitch a Jim Hammond Human Torch story. And I think our idea was really good, but ultimately Marvel's point of view was, unless it's an anniversary, we would be hard pressed to sell it, you know. And I get that too, because
I guess,
you know, it's a shame, but I was like, oh, this would be me like having those three characters, at least having, you know, done some kind of one shot with each of them. But I love that era. And I mean, I like the DC stuff. Obviously I've done more with the DC World War II era, but I like the idea of it. That's still a touchstone for the beginning of comic books. You know, it goes back to Superman, really the first appearance of Superman. Yeah. You know, and that kind of spawned the entire superhero world. So you don't have Captain America without Superman. You don't have any of those characters. You don't have Batman without Superman. Sure. You know, and I feel like those, for whatever reason, as a fan, foremost, as I'm always been a comic fan, the idea of touching back, or, you know, maybe a callback to that era, is what the JSA is about, because they existed during World War II. They're anchored to that bit of history, you know. And that to me is fascinating, because so much of the comic, you know, continuity is on a flexible sliding scale. You know, Reed Richards and Ben Grimm fought in Korea, and then it's like, well, how do you move that up? You know, are they fighting in Vietnam? Are they fighting in Afghanistan? Are they, you know, I mean, it's cool when something's anchored for story reasons, like the JSA, you know, in that a time frame that's relevant, I guess, to history, you know.
I agree with you, man. Jet City Comics says All-Star Squadron was a great series, and he said he had a nice compliment for you, Roy. It's a couple comments ahead here. I got to get to it. First of all, 1001 Johnny just became a member, and thank you, Johnny, for that.
Oh, cool.
Mr. Ordway, I've been reading through the Bronze Age, Wonder Woman starting at 288. My next book currently is 294, which has you as the inker.
That would have probably been the Huntress. The backups of the Huntress, probably.
Oh, okay. Was that Staten? Who were you inking over? Joe Staten.
I think I inked maybe 5 of them as a side job, even though I was inking All-Star Squadron at the time. Those things were like 26, 27 pages. But I still had time to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, man. And here, Jet said, he says, I've been reading comics for 50 years, and Jerry's work's always been a great part of that. Thank you, Jerry.
Well, that's cool. Thanks for making me feel even older.
You still got it, Jared. Don't sweat it. It's just a number. You know that. You know that. You're doing great, Jared. You look young as you haven't changed in the years that I've known you, man.
I just went through, or didn't attend it, but I had I guess they were having my 50th high school reunion back in June in Wisconsin, but I didn't go.
I did the 40th 2 years ago, so I hear you, man.
I went to the 10-year reunion and I said, I don't know why I'm doing this. It was nothing against anybody, but all the people who showed up, none of them were the people I hung out with.
Oh,
you know?
okay. Well, that's
so it's like, well, whatever.
Yeah. No, I have to say, even at the 40th, we had a good number of people that I was friends with, so it was nice.
Yeah. Well,
cool. You know, how were you happy with? They didn't give her much to do. And did you meet the woman that played Cat Grant, and what'd you think of her?
No, and the thing was, they were not filming any of the Daily Planet stuff, and none of those characters bled into the Fortress stuff or the Lex Luthor office stuff. So we, while we were there, it was also Lois Lane's day off. She wasn't filming.
Bummer.
So we were there for we flew in like on a Monday morning, and Tuesday was our set visit, and Wednesday we flew back. So it was just the Tuesday that we had. But I got to meet David Cornsweet. I got to meet Nicholas Holt. Actually, Nicholas Holt was staying at the same hotel, so we kept seeing him. He kept coming by and like saying hi to us when we were sitting in the bar. I think what was the in the scene where Lex is in his office and Superman breaks the door down? We got to see that being filmed.
Cool.
It's like the first confrontation where he's like,
where's the dog?
What did you do with my dog, or whatever? And that was really funny to watch being filmed. It was just interesting. We saw it the first time, second time, third time, and each time the door explodes, and we're like, how do they reset? It's like reset, and you see a guy putting like little pieces of the door back together, and then sweeping up sawdust and stuff, because they basically blow the door out with buckets of sawdust coming at the same time. It was all in camera. It was really cool. And when they showed it in the film, it was from a different angle. So the angle we were seeing it at was like Lex Luthor's on the side with the reporter interviewing him. Michael Ian Black actually was funny too. And they were talking about, they were clearly ad-libbing, waiting for the door to explode. They were talking about eggplant recipes, which was really funny. It was just like, that's really funny, and they did it each take. But the door from the side, the door is right in front of us, and it just explodes right in front of you. And Michael Ian Black, reacts, and Lex doesn't. Lex just kind of sits still. But by the third take, Michael Ian Black tips over in his chair and like does sprawling on the floor, right? And when James Gunn came downstairs, we were watching on monitors. He came down. He said, "What'd you guys think? What'd you guys think?" And I said, "Okay, so does Michael Ian Black get like a stunt credit or extra money for doing that?" He goes, "Oh, hell no. I've known him for years. He doesn't get anything."
Think about that. No, think about that with the door. And think about how they probably only did it in one take every time George Reeves would explode through a wall,
Right.
or whatever, you know.
Well, the famous one with George Reeves was the brick wall, and it's very effective. And it's very low tech. They basically probably stacked,
Bricks.
cardboard bricks and maybe put some talcum powder or something between them. But it doesn't matter how low tech it is if it looks good on camera.
Jer, when they were shooting the Avengers movie, some people had their cameras on their phones and were taking random pictures, and everyone's like, I don't know, man, I don't know. And it's like, no, man, they're doing back then it was a red camera, one of the great high def, digital camera. I'm like,
oh yeah,
it'll be fine. Don't worry about a thing.
Well,
Everything's going to be fine.
Never, you can't really see like sneaked footage or whatever and realize that that's not a movie.
No,
that's just someone taking pictures of people,
Yeah.
It's the same with, it is really like that with comics too. It's like you have a shot of Superman just standing, right? It's not dynamic. The artist is going to make a low angle, or they're going to do something that makes that image pop or is more dynamic, So, it's with movies. That's the whole art of movie making, is to make something bigger than life, whether, even if you're doing real life or you're doing something akin to, grounded in reality, you're going to give it at least 15-20% extra, because that's the art of movie making, right? We've all studied our Orson Welles and Citizen Kane, and that stuff is what makes a movie a movie. Those guys had a visual eye. They knew how to set the camera. They knew what they wanted the actors to do it, and it takes a special skill.
Gene Colan told me years ago that he would study old films for angles and things like that.
And you could see it.
Did you do that as well?
Oh yeah. The funny thing about Gene was that he would take pictures. So that all that Daredevil stuff, all that stuff, the stuff that was more grounded in reality, I think, was his better stuff. Like Daredevil, even though he wasn't jumping off buildings, I guarantee you he was probably going up and taking pictures off of building ledges for those extreme angles and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what added the way he took those pictures. That was his Kirby, like Stan Lee asking every artist to be bigger to ape Kirby. Not everybody can do Kirby. What Gene Colan did was really kind of brilliant, because he was a really good photographer. So I don't know for sure, but I would guess that he probably used a 200 millimeter lens or something that would do a little distortion, because his stuff all had that great distortion. It was still grounded in reality. It was a little wonky, but it was still, it was dynamic,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I use these books. I don't know if I can even find it, but
I'll zoom
here's
in.
one that I've got. I've had this since I can even look.
That's great.
I guarantee you it might even have an inscription, but it maybe not this one. But I got this probably when I was a teen, right? And it's got all these great pictures in it. All these old movie pictures.
Yeah.
Like here's from Touch of Evil.
Sure.
That's the stuff that, like, when I'm doing All-Star Squadron and I have to draw guys in hats, or, guys in baggy suits, old cars or whatever, you find a lot in there, and I use that probably since I started in comics. I also have one of those books of the Maltese Falcon. I have Psycho. They put
sure, I remember those. Absolutely.
And they're
yes,
they're great. They're great just for comic book reference. You have to pick and choose like pieces of things, but like there's a good angle of a low angle on a head, and the Hitchcock, so the lighting's all cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot. You find stuff like that, and these type of books are sitting by my drawing table on a little shelf for as long as I've been drawing comics. I'll look at those, like, as I know, I need a shot of something. I'll go, I think there was something in one of these crime, movies or whatever. Sure. Some of them I've never used, but I was like, oh, that one, there's a Steve McQueen shot. That would be a great one to use. And I never found a place to use it. And it's like, it was so great that I didn't want to just throw it away in a panel somewhere. So it's like, I want to save that for
a big moment.
And then I never wound up using it. So,
well, but I remember those books. Yeah, no, exactly. There's still time, absolutely, and the right moment might come. But no, those books were great, and younger people have to understand these books were made before VCRs, and this is the
before
way that
internet.
other than watching them on late night movie
Yeah.
reruns of movies and stuff, this is how we could like have them around, and as
Oh, yeah.
you said, even as a reference and everything for potential art and everything. No, it makes a lot of sense.
Well,
I remember it well.
if did you ever? I mean, you've probably read the Steranko History of Comics. So
Yep.
I read that in the 70s when it came out. And I was a young guy when I read that. And I remember being like amazed at the stories because Jerry Robinson he actually years later, he told me all the pretty much the same stories with a little bit more detail that are in there. But the one that always got me was reading about the guys it was Will Eisner's group. And they would go see Citizen Kane like every day. And they would take sketchbooks and stuff because they were impressed by the camera angles. Because Citizen Kane was one of the first ones to shoot low where you can see the ceiling, because generally sets didn't have ceilings because shots were either eye level or they were like looking down or whatever.
Right.
So they were just so impressed with the angles in Citizen Kane. They immediately were like, this is going to work to make our comics better. So, we've come a long way now where you can just type in a word search on Google or whatever and find a gazillion pictures that may or may not help you from, someone sitting in a movie theater sketching or, having a book that's got movie stills or whatever. When I did Infinity Inc., the first issue, there's a sequence that happens in a McDonald's, and I wasn't like forward enough to go into a McDonald's and take pictures. So I went to my local McDonald's with my sketchbook, ordered breakfast, had coffee, had an extra coffee, and then I just did like really little sketches of details. And that's how I built McDonald's for that, because the little stuff is what makes something believable. If you just make it up out of your head, you can kind of do it, but having some kind of extra information that informs the drawing makes it just a little bit less generic, So, that was something I did. People you'd go to the library if you needed to draw a submarine or something, go to the library, find some picture book with submarines in it. And generally some of those you couldn't even take out if they were from a reference thing. So you'd have to really sketch from there. If you could bring it home, that was great, but then you had to bring it back in a couple days. So, but yeah, so the it's made all of that so much easier, but at the same time, it still feels, I don't know, there's still a kind of a thrill. Like I don't know if you could see, I have a file cabinet in the corner. My file cabinet's got, folders with art pictures that I've clipped over the years. I started doing that when I worked in commercial art back in the 70s. Art more your file. So I've got pictures of space stuff, or I've got pictures, again, clipped over years from magazines, probably more recently from newspapers, but I still go there first. Like if I have to draw something, I'll look there first. And then if I don't find something I want, I'll go on the internet,
Okay.
But yeah, as an artist, you really, you want to kind of have some extra detail, because no one's, we don't have production designers. We're all of it,
Yeah, that's the thing, man. No, I mean, we sometimes mistakenly focus on the writing, and it's like, no, you guys are doing 90% of the heavy lifting and everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, the best one is still, 100 guys rush in from the side with machine guns. No one wants to draw that.
Yeah, see you later. All right, I've written my part. Good luck, Jim.
Eventually you do.
James wants to know if we can get a tour of your spinner rack and what you got back there. I'm zooming in.
Well, it's mostly, at this point, I took a bunch of the comics off, but it's mostly trades.
Oh, cool.
Stuff that I feel like either some of the books are books I did that I might need to reference if I have to draw a character. Some of it's just like I have my complete set of the Who's Who, which I was using for the New History of the DC Universe. I also wound up using that a lot for this. I inked the George Perez poster pencil art that Alex Ross had done the painting of, that they did the big print, I guess, back in '98.
The Crisis, the Crisis big giant thing.
So they're doing a remastered Crisis, which I did a bunch of work on, cleaning up scans and stuff. And I thought I was done. And they said, hey, would you do this? Would you be willing to ink it? And we'll include it. We'll maybe do the new slipcover with that inked version. And then we'll also include it as a fold out in the book. So it's like really the last big Crisis specific thing that George might have done.
Sure.
And so I stupidly said yes. And it took me a month to ink it because I didn't realize, again, I had a friend of mine had the poster and he sent me the character key. And there's like 560 characters in there. And I'm like, you can't just start inking and go, okay, I got to check the costume on each one of them. So went to the who's who, and sometimes I had to do an internet search, or I had to dig through my comics. But that was a massive amount of work.
I can't wait to see it, man. That's fantastic. That's excellent. And mentioning who's who, by all means, feel free, because mentioning who's who, Caesar of Rome says they should revive who's who for Free Comic Day. And then James wanted to know if they should bring back who's who, given what you guys have done now with the new history for the DC universe and everything.
I mean, it's a good idea. I don't know that I would want to. Honestly, I feel like I gave it the office. So I had to draw it on 3 separate pieces. This is 13 by 19.
Wow.
Right. That's the left-hand side.
Okay.
And there's the middle piece.
The center. Yeah. Yeah, all the bits of business that are happening in that amazing image. Absolutely.
And a lot of it, I mean, the photocopy, it wasn't really a photocopy so much. It was apparently George drew it on a board that Alex painted directly on. So the fact that I think Alex and maybe DC or somebody might have made a copy of it is good, but the quality of the left, especially the left side, wasn't great.
Okay.
So I followed that up.
Hold on, zooming in.
Yeah. So this is a copy of it, but this is Roy Thomas's autobiography from Tomorrows that's coming out, I think, next fall.
Hey, wow.
But it's all talk about your public domain characters.
Ha.
So it's all public domain characters, some that I'd never drawn before, which was kind of fun. Some I'd never heard of before. There were some like that I knew of, but there's a guy in here. Well, you have the black.
Zooming in again.
Of course.
Black Terror.
The original Daredevil.
I was going to say, is Daredevil in there? Sure.
And I guess Spy Smasher up there.
Oh, very good. There's a Faucet character that is.
But there was one that was like totally vexing me. It was kind of funny. It was the Heap is in here too.
The Heap, fantastic.
It was Yellow Jacket. And
I didn't know that. Yellow Jacket. Keep going.
It's stuff that Roy, was Roy's childhood, basically.
Sure.
So it was fun, and it was fun to do. So that aspect of working on the public domain was kind of fun, because it was like, now I really have drawn almost every character in comics.
That's outstanding, man.
Checking them off.
This is interesting. James is asking a question. Is it because of using old reference that some artists never update their character hairstyles and clothes?
Possibly. But then a lot of stuff does come around after, generally, like when you're living in an era and there's something is the newest hot thing or look or fabric or whatever it is, those things tend to just burn out quickly. So like if you were drawing a book that was set in the 90s or 80s or whatever, it's not like everybody is wearing mohawks. You know what I mean? So generally suits, they don't change that much. They generally change in the way they fit. They'll either be tight fit, like more recently you have the really slim fit. 80s, 90s were more baggy. They got into the, not as bad as David Byrne, but they were like baggy. Hairstyles, they change a little bit, but not a lot. And so I think it's that people get used to what they're drawing rather than being like, I'm using reference from something. Superman's hairstyle is even to this day is very much the same as it was. It's classic 1930s comic strip art style.
Sure.
And so it's got the highlights. It's shiny, basically because they used, grease in it, or they used the, what I mean? It's like Brill cream or whatever it was back then.
A little dab will do you.
Exactly. So those styles are very outdated. They really are. And it really, you notice it more when you see a movie and you go, okay, these are real life people. It's like, yeah, they're not going to do like Christopher Reeve. They definitely gave him a 1930s slicked hair look. That wasn't, definitely wasn't what people were wearing in 1978. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But
did you ever draw the mullet when you were drawing Superman?
I inked a couple things because I was writing it at the point. I wasn't really drawing.
Yeah.
But I remember inking a Jurgens thing, maybe a Doomsday cover for the Doomsday Annual. I mean, I definitely, and I've had requests from for commission stuff. Like one guy, I think wanted me to do Superman with the eagle, but he wanted the long hair mullet kind of thing, and I was like, whatever.
It really isn't a mullet, but we all call it that.
No,
that.
I mean, it's right. A mullet.
It's Conan hair. It looks like Conan, basically.
It's just long in the back, short on the sides. But a mullet was a very specific. It's a generalized mullet if you do that. But I remember back in I want to say 87 when I first moved to Connecticut. I was living in West Haven, and it was the same town Mike Zeck lived. Mike was super nice, always very helpful and friendly. And John Beatty would come from Florida and stay with Mike for like a summer, right? And he would be working while he was there. And John, during one of those trips, had what would be classified as the mullet, because it was kind of the shaved up sides, right? Yeah. And the long in the back.
Sure.
And I always think of that as a mullet. And the funny, because everything's a story with me.
That's why I have you on, Jer.
He was hanging out. We were all hanging out. We go to Burns' house, right? And we go out to eat with John and his wife, Andy. And we go back to John's house afterwards, and he's showing us what he's drawing and all this stuff. And at that point, John was doing the buzz cut. So he had like one of those razors to do the buzz cut. And he offered John Beatty $100 if John would let him buzz cut his hair, because John had the great mullet and, really just nice. And John's like, I don't know, man. Like $100, that was a lot, 1987, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of change to let somebody cut your hair.
John's still
like, I don't know. And then he goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do it if you let me ink Action Comics. So Byrne goes, sold. So John, and this is all documented. His wife is a photographer. Andy took pictures of the haircut in progress. It was very much like watching Full Metal Jacket when, the Vincent D'Onofrio's characters because John looked like Vincent D'Onofrio with his shaved head. It was so funny.
Wow. Because John, like I said, John's sporting some rocking hair. He's got kind of an Elvis thing going on these days.
It was just funny that he had been wearing his crew cut for so long that he was like itching to be able to use that machine on somebody else.
That's John fantastic.
He had the luxurious locks, so it was more of a challenge, worth $100 and an inking assignment. So
that's outstanding.
John inked Byrne for a couple issues. I don't know how many, but it was a couple issues of. I think it was. I'm trying to remember if it was the regular book or if it was Action, but I think it might have been the regular comic. But then he moved over when Action became a weekly. I think Beatty went and initially was inking Kurt Swan on the Action Comics weekly Superman spread.
That'd be an interesting combination, Beatty and
John did a great job on Kurt.
That's cool. I have a 1 page of Kurt Swan art, and Tex Blaisdell inked it, and it's a Lois and Clark page.
Yeah.
But I love it, and I'm so glad that I have even that just 1 page of Kurt Swan.
Tex he's kind of like an unsung guy nowadays, but he was good on Kurt. My very first, very early memory, I went up to DC Comics in, I want to say it was 1977, but maybe I'm wrong. It was whenever the DC implosion. It was right before the DC implosion.
Wow. Yeah.
So I went up there with my samples. Vince Coletta was the art director, which is crazy. And Vince was wearing a leisure suit, right?
Yeah.
He's got that kind of like tan leisure suit. And the weird thing about walking up to DC is the hallways were somewhat wide. They were wide enough that people had these little mini desks. So here's Julie Schwartz's office, and there's a corridor, hallway, productions here. And I remember Carrie Bates had a typewriter on the little desk, and Carrie would be typing stories. So basically Julie could control the stories too. But I remember Tex Blaisdell inking Kurt Swan in the, like, you're just walking by it down the hallway and it's like, hey, there's a guy inking Kurt Swan Superman pages.
Wow.
So it was kind of crazy and cool at the same time. But that was, again, someone can say, when was the DC implosion? Was it 78 or was it 77? But
yeah, it's around there.
But that was that trip. Mike Macklin and I drove from Wisconsin with no sleep, drove overnight to a friend of mine who was in Rhode Island, who was going to get us into DC. And it was amazing trip, but I was like so sleep deprived, and I was so hopped up on no-dose caffeine pills to keep awake. I couldn't sleep for like 3 days.
Oh man, I remember that from college, so I hear you, man.
It was bad.
Jeez.
But we went up to DC and we got in. We went up to Marvel. We did not get in. They wouldn't let us in to the bullpen. But so we're sitting in the lobby, and we got to see. This is a good, funny comic history. We're sitting in the lobby. We would see people come in and walk through, and there was a person at a desk, like a receptionist, and then there was, we saw Rich Buckler come in. We knew from seeing pictures of him. He came in and he was trying to convince this person that was doing art returns that had a little table in the lobby area. The person might have come out from the bullpen, but he was trying to convince this person that he was there to pick up the Kiss pages. And Mike and I were like going, he didn't draw Kiss. That was like, it was Alan
Davis?
No, that's one of those old guy things. I can think.
Yeah, believe me, I hear you.
But anyway, it was definitely not him, and he kept saying, "No, I'm supposed to get." And it was like, "I don't think you worked on that book." Oh no, he told me I could come pick up the pages for him. So we were hearing this, and the guy finally said, "No, I'm not giving them to you," and then he left. It was just a weird thing. And then Jim Shooter came out, and Jim had just been hired by Archie Goodwin as the assistant editor, because Archie was editor-in-chief for that period of time.
Yeah.
So Jim came out and he said, he looked at our stuff and he said, "Hey, we'd love to, we just don't have a lot of room in there. We don't really want to, we don't have people come in." So he brought out photocopies of comic issues, like a whole issue of Kirby's Machine Man, What If, that George Tuska had penciled with Captain America, Herb Trimpe Hulk, just a bunch. And then there was some Byrne Marvel team-up pages, Byrne pencils. And he said, take these back to, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, whatever, and practice on them. Use vellum, practice inking. You'll learn a lot just from working at this size and all this. So it was really nice of him.
Wow.
We were still bummed out that we didn't get to go in, but he was very nice and very gracious to us. So I've always had kind of a weird relationship to Shooter, and Jim, recently passed away. And it was very sad, but he was one of those guys who I had good experiences with. I also had bad experiences with him, but he was definitely a comic fan. His heart was in the right place. He just went through a really crazy period, I think, where he was just making everybody's life difficult back in the 80s. But he was nice to me at different points in my career. But at the same time, he tortured friends of mine.
Wow.
And so it's like hard to reconcile some of that. But then at the same time, nobody is perfect. And some people just get in their heads too much, or get whatever over their heads.
People are complicated. And I know when I had any sort of managerial power when I was in my 20s, I could be a jerk. And but no, and I've heard good stories and bad stories about Jim. We're doing a tribute panel for Jim at Terrificon.
Oh, cool.
I don't know who's on it yet. Mitch hasn't told me who's on it yet, but no, I'm looking forward to it. And man, I feel so fortunate to have had that one panel that I did with Jim. And got so many great stories of his tenure, and also what he did at Valiant and everything too.
I mean, it was weird because again, when he was at Marvel during the time I worked on Byrne on the FF, that would have been 84 into 85, is when he was starting to really wind up and get into everybody's stuff. You know, basically, he was impeding the monthly process by asking for stuff to be totally redone because he had this very specific way he wanted everybody to work. And if anybody knows anything about artists or creative people, is that nobody works the same way. You know what I mean? There's a set of rules that work if you're a kid and you don't know anything. There are basics that you can learn, but nobody does anything the same way. And Jim was trying to impose a very fixed way of working, inking, penciling, and writing. You know, so he started with the writers, then he went to the pencilers, then he went to the inkers. And he just drove people nuts. So when he was finally fired by Marvel, I had just moved to Connecticut and at the end of March or mid-March, I forget, and he was fired on the 15th of April. And it was really like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was just Walt Simons, is what I heard, was, even Walt had gone in and talked to Jim's boss and said, this can't go on. He's alienating whatever people and stuff.
Wow.
So it took a lot. But then maybe less than 2 years later, I saw him up at a Ramapo comic show when he was launching Valiant. And we had a terrific conversation. And I had already read a few of the early Valiant books, and I thought they were great. He was always a good creator. You know what I mean? He had great ideas. He knew comics, and he was this huge fan. So it is a complicated legacy, and I talked to a couple of people about this. Is that he was kind of tortured by Mort Weisinger when he was a kid, and he was working for DC. I mean, he was like a teenager, like maybe
14 years old.
14, yeah, 14, right, writing a Legion of Superheroes or whatever. And Mort Weisinger was not an easy person to work with. So we were discussing that. It's like, do you think at some point that you pay it forward in the wrong way? Like, I was spanked when I was a kid. I'm going to spank my kids when I'm a father or whatever.
Yeah.
There's things that just, you don't want to repeat mistakes, but a lot of times mistakes get repeated. There's just a weird thing about human nature, I suppose.
I'm with you.
So we were discussing that. It's like, do you think he just kind of got into that Mort Weisinger kind of period? Because it really was like that. But,
wow. No, honestly, you're the first guy that's really opened up. And again, because, we want to be respectful for people that pass. But by the same token, this is a guy that, did a lot of great things for creators, royalties.
Right. My intent wasn't to badmouth. I just think that
not at all.
People are complicated. And right. I do think that some people maybe even withhold saying, oh, condolences, because they have more bad blood, or, not everybody gets over stuff.
Sure.
I've had bad situations in my career that I thought, well, I'm never going to talk to that person. Once I'm done with this, I'm never going to have to deal with that. But then, the years pass and you go, if I don't have to work with them, I'm fine with seeing them socially. I'm fine with, being, you know what I mean? So
I do.
I feel like everybody gets screwed. Ultimately, it's an editor, it's a business decision, whatever it is. And I don't hold any of that. It's not worth, holding on to stuff, because ultimately you realize that your angst and your anger hurts you more than it hurts the other person. They don't give a crap. Yep. They're not thinking about you.
Nope. I hear you, man. No, absolutely.
So you do have to compartmentalize it. But again, it was not my intent to. Jim was like I said, I had great experiences with him, and he was very nice to me when I was a fan. He tried to hire me in 1980, but I already signed with DC, and I'm glad that I didn't go to Marvel then, because I didn't feel it. I was feeling DC was like needed me more in my egotistical young man's brain. I was like, I think I could do more at DC. But
you made your mark there and everything.
Yeah.
when
but
you were,
like I said, it is interesting. So like even, and we're at that age too, or I'm at that age where, I see people and I go, wow, like Marv Wolfman, Marv's, he's getting up there. Byrne is
Sure.
getting up there.
Yeah.
Those guys were the people who came in before me, but those were inspirational guys. I read all those comics when I was a teenager or when I was a young adult or whatever. So it's a shame in a way that you lose history when these people pass away, especially if they pass away young or youngish, and that, to me, a lot of that history does get lost, even stuff from 20 years ago, let alone 1940, 1930s, whatever,
Yeah, and also, well, that's why I appreciate what Roy's done with Alter Ego all these years, and also all the Tomorrow's guys with the other books as well. But and also the legends get repeated to the point where we don't know the real story.
Right.
And that kind of gets me angry. And, we mentioned Vinnie Coletta earlier. And listen, that guy was no saint by any means, but also was a complicated guy that did as many artists benefits. In fact, I want to ask Engelhart. He's going to be at Terrificon. And I had heard the story that that it was Vinnie who went to the bosses at DC when Laughing Fish was getting behind in the schedule. And they were going to take take him and Marshall Rogers off the book. And Vinny went to bat for him and said, "No, this is a great story. You got to let these guys finish the story."
Yeah, I mean, again, people have complicated legacies,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
No one more so. I mean, think about what you and I were talking about the idea of seeing the Fantastic Four, and Stan Lee's got a complicated legacy because he spent so many years denying credit to Ditko and Kirby and all these people, and that to me complicates all the good that he did.
Completely agree.
It doesn't erase it.
No.
And I'm not going to throw him to the curb, but seeing Fantastic Four, that was like so. It made me almost well up a little bit to see Kirby so well represented in the movie, not only with the co-creator credit, but there's like a little scene in there. You blink and you miss it of the comic artist and the writer, kind of like a early Marvel kind of thing, just in a window. It was just a cool little tribute. And then he's got a little quote at the end of the movie, and that was a long time coming.
Agreed. Well, not only that, but he was begging for his art back.
I was there. That was, we were all trying to get that happening.
And then you find out that Stan has a bunch of it in a warehouse. I remember literally like 10 years before he died, he was on some Hollywood memorabilia show. Oh, I've got pages of stuff. And it's like, oh, you mean the stuff that Jack wanted all those years?
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's complicated. I mean, again, I respect Stan Lee as a creator, but no, he was, but you're right in terms of credit and things like that. No, he's got a lot to answer for.
Again, though, so like when I go back to the first Superman movie in '78, before that movie came out, for the year before that came out, at least a year, maybe a year and a half, you were getting give Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster their credit and give them some kind of, you had Jerry Robinson, Neil Adams, and I know there were other people, but they were trying to make a public stink because there's a big movie being made and these guys are like, they're destitute, Yeah. So seeing that first Superman movie and seeing their names go up in the beginning, it always gets me, I get choked up. It's not just the music, it's the whole thing, the music, and then seeing Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, because I felt like as a comic fan at that point, I went through that battle and I was supportive as much as a comic fan could be. That was a cool moment. So with Kirby, with Ditko on Spider-Man, I feel that same kind of thing because it feels like as a creator, you're denying them. It's not even about money, even though the money's substantial that they were kind of denied. Credit is the big thing, I mean, if you do a good job, you want somebody to acknowledge that. You don't want somebody else to take credit for it. So that always bugged me. So I was very thrilled to see it and feel that essence of Jack in there, because when in the 80s, when he was going through his Marvel thing and trying to get the artwork back, that was when I was working on the Fantastic Four anniversary issue with Jim Shooter. Stanley dialogue, Jim Shooter. I did like 22 pages in that. It's got the Barry Smith cover close up of the Thing's head on it. And I was at Chicago Con and San Diego that year. And I took and photocopied, took a picture of Jack Kirby's face from like comic Amazing Heroes or something, blew it up to 8.5 by 11. And I said, what about Jack? Right. I wrote it was really basic. I printed up or photocopied like 50 of them, took them to Chicago Con, put them on my table while I was signing at the Marvel table. I had people could come up and grab them. I was just like, I'm being a rebel. So the other thing that I did at that show at the Chicago Con was Marvel had a big panel. They were all, they're debuting whatever their big news was. So the Marvel panel was a big deal. I cut out and made masks of the Kirby face because it was life size. Cut out eye holes and made masks. And I asked a bunch of fans that I knew, people who I'd seen regularly. I said, would you wear this to the Kirby panel? And apparently like 8 or 9 of them wore it to the Kirby panel, and they stood up when Shooter was talking about the art and stuff. I don't know if that stuff makes any difference. It felt like it was worth trying, like a public shaming. And then
Sure.
At the show, I did it also for San Diego, but at the at Chicago, Eclipse Comics, Kat Ironwood came up to me and she said, that's a really good idea. Do you mind if I steal it? And I was like, no, whatever. So they did like a full page house ad in the
in Eclipse. That's right.
Basically, what about Jack?
Right. What about Jack? Yeah.
So, and I felt like that was, a very little effort on my part. I hope it had some impact, but I got to know Jack and Roz through the San Diego cons. And I was friends with Mark Evanier. So you were suddenly in, and they were sweet people,
Wow.
That's the most fun memories thinking back on that is the, hanging out with them at dinners. I can't say I was like, I don't know how much they remembered me, but I think they did. But it was fun, That's the best part of working in comics. I got to know Jerry Siegel and his wife Joanne a little bit, just through the same kind of thing. Martin O'Dell. I mean, there's a lot of those guys that are gone, obviously, but to me, it was important because it was history. And the fact that I did All-Star Squadron, I had a little bit of those guys kind of knew All-Star Squadron because it was their characters. Or
sure.
So
yeah.
It was kind of fun, But now I'm an old guy. So,
but still killing it here.
But you think about when in 1980, the comic industry was celebrating 50 years, really. And now we're like 45 years after that or something. It's kind of crazy.
Coming on 100.
Yeah.
Coming on 100 in the next decade. Absolutely. Dean Haspiel, who will be joining us at Terrificon, joining the conversation, and says Jerry Ordway's a master cartoonist,
thanks,
super
Dean.
Generous, and a national treasure. Very nice. Absolutely, man. Hoping to talk to Dean before we get to Terrificon in a couple of weeks as well. We were talking about the movie off the air, about the FF movie, and I really enjoyed it. I really appreciated the aesthetic of the art direction and that combination of 60s and the world of tomorrow we were all promised when you and I were kids.
Yeah. Definitely.
Where's our jetpacks, man? That's what I want to know.
Well, think about it realistically, John. Would you want to be walking down the street and have some guy in a jetpack like clip you with his feet?
No, but Jared, I don't know about you.
People can't drive cars. They can't drive bicycles.
That's true. But honestly, Jared,
a flying car.
being the age I was and seeing, because you're only a little bit older, but when we saw Thunderball or all those jetpack demonstrations at half times of college games or football games, I thought for sure by the time we were in our 50s that we'd all have jetpacks. I really thought so.
Yeah, the idea is appealing. We have drones. Think of that. We have cameras that can fly.
Oh, no. And we have the supercomputer, in our pocket, which is great. But I really wanted a flying car or a jetpack. I got to be honest.
You didn't want a monkey?
No, I didn't want a monkey. No, I did not. I heard too many stories of them tearing off faces and stuff.
Do you remember
like
that? Well, now, sure. Now you know. when I was a kid, they had that ad right on the back. Is a Johnson Smith company, and it was 1995 or something. And I always think about that. It's like, thank God my brother Joel and I never had 19 or 20 bucks to spare. We would have been in such deep crap.
Yes.
We would have probably got a box with a monkey that died on its
I was going to say, this is long before PETA, everybody. Yeah, this is a terrible thing that you get at the back of a comic book, but you could get a live monkey. Absolutely.
I mean, I was a kid watching TV in the 60s. The idea of, we had Lancelot Link. We had the idea of a chimp or one of those little monkeys, the rhesus monkey, whatever they are.
The Marcus chimps that were always on the variety shows.
The organ grinder monkey. I mean, the idea of having something like that was so appealing as a kid. Because you're not, as an adult, you go like, I don't want to have something I got to clean up after, and
Well, and they live forever. My God, Cheetah, the original Cheetah from the Tarzan movies, like made it to his 80s or 90s.
What do you remember? I was just thinking, you'd see pictures of him, maybe like a National Enquirer or something. It would be a picture of Cheetah at 90, and he's got a cigar, and it was virtually undistinguishable from George Burns.
Totally. Sad but true. Absolutely, man. I have relatives, old men that look like chimpanzees. Absolutely. And every time we go to the house, yes, and they smoke cigars. And it was like my dad would make fun and go, all right, let's go see the Uncle Gus, or as we like to call it, the Planet of the Apes. Let's go visit him on the Planet of the Apes. So no, believe me, man. Yes, as ChemDog says, live monkeys and those cardboard submarines.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Come on.
Well, how about, who fell for the was it the 6 foot or 7 foot Frankenstein? And it was basically just a big piece of cardboard.
Yep. Or the Raquel Welch pillow. I remember that.
Again, I'm glad I didn't have any money to burn.
Honestly, Jer, I wonder whatever happened to that Johnson company, because I think they were out of Chicago. Yeah, onion soap and black soap.
Somebody has a license to it, because the Johnson Smith company, I think, is still in existence, rolled into another
novelty company.
Yeah. You can look them up online. If you want to buy, like the wind up teeth, I think they still got those. So
X-ray specs, of course.
Yeah.
That was my favorite joke on Moonlighting, when Bruce Willis was wearing the X-ray specs and he's looking at Sybil Shepherd. He goes, "You must be wearing a lead dress. I can't see a thing."
I mean, it's funny to think about, again, childhood stuff, but I think I would really say that every cent that I had went into comics. And if it didn't, it went into art supplies, because art supplies as a kid, they've always been expensive.
Sure.
It is kind of funny to think back, because I think somebody recently put out a collection of the Marvel blacklight posters.
Oh, yes.
From the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember buying a couple of those, because we would go downtown Milwaukee, and downtown Wisconsin Avenue had the big newsstand, and the newsstand had all the books, had the magazines, whatever. We would go there, we'd buy our comics, we'd walk up from, say, 3rd and Wisconsin up to, say, 5th and Wisconsin, where they have Moon's Magic Shop. And you would go in there and you could buy little magic tricks, right? But they also had the blacklight posters.
Fantastic.
So, they had the giant, I remember Black Bolt was one of them, maybe a Submariner one.
Yes.
They were crazy, but then, who had a blacklight bulb? Nobody had blacklight bulbs.
Oh, really?
So you had to have the bulb to be able to see it glow, right?
Right.
You had to have the whatever that's in the bulb. So we bought it, and we expected it to glow when you turn the light on. It just got dark. It's like,
oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, man, what a jip.
Because in the 70s, my stepbrother had bought a couple black light bulbs for things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't know that you needed that, so we were like kind of dumb. We thought that they would glow in the dark because they look cool in the store.
Sure.
And they were cool, but that was definitely 1967, 68 in that time.
Psychedelic, yeah, man. The psychedelic period, absolutely.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that Ditko is, and his art for Doctor Strange was associated with that stuff, and there wasn't a more buttoned down, non-psychedelic guy than Steve Ditko.
That is funny. Well, I mean, he created it for his own purposes. Other people found in it, just like any comic, any property, people will adopt it and see what they want to see in it.
100%.
The straight-laced guy who didn't believe in, leniency. It was like either you were a criminal or you weren't a criminal or whatever.
Right. No shades of gray.
Yeah. There was no gray in there. And yet he created concepts that people saw that applied to them, which is cool.
Yeah.
You know?
I had heard that Cat Ironwood insulted him because she saw, being the Earth Mother that she was, all these psychedelic things. And Ditko's like, yeah, no, I did not. No, I was not thinking about those things. Thank you. Get away from me. So yeah, that kind of kills me. Too much,
fun,
man.
But again, that's the cool part. I think
art.
Yeah, it's people will embrace it. Just like I think it was interesting. I never knew until I would say even maybe when the first X-Men movie came out that there was that the X-Men was like a kind of gay icon, and they were seeing their plight in that.
Yes.
I find that fascinating, but also it's like that's the cool thing about comics. If you're downtrodden in any way, you could be anybody. You feel like an underdog. You look up to that, superhero who's, helping people like you or whatever. That's the cool part about it. I think that never goes away.
I agree, absolutely. So FF, I promise we talk a little bit, but if you got to go, I don't want to mess you up.
I don't have to go. No.
Okay, cool. Because I really thought they did a great job. The characters, and as someone that's been involved with the FF as you were and everything, how'd you feel about the movie?
I really liked it. I mean, I will hesitate to. I don't want to make it a them or us kind of thing, but I got more emotional impact out of it than I did Superman. And I like Superman, but I felt like I really felt the because I'm a father, and without spoilers, there's aspects of it that have to do with their child.
Yeah.
And that was released in teasers, but that stuff was very powerful to me, and I thought that
I agree.
The two big action sequences were really I was on the edge of my seat. I mean, it was good.
Yeah,
and it's possible that I didn't go into it with huge, like, unrealistic expectations. So I do think that accounts for a lot, because a lot of times I'll see a movie, and the first time I see it, it's like, yeah, I kind of liked it, and I'll see it the next time. It's like, wow, I missed this, or I didn't, you do come into stuff with prejudices of how you would do it yourself.
Sure.
I think everybody does that, whether they're a comic creator or not,
Yeah.
I think I used the example of like seeing this Star Wars movie, first Star Wars, and there were little throwaway bits about the Clone Wars, or there were throwaway bits about whatever, doing the Kessel Run in how parsecs, whatever it was, and that stuff. Ultimately, your imagination takes that and makes it into something much cooler than what the filmmakers could, because ultimately you've probably spent 15 years thinking about it, So that's always the I think something that you have to look out for, especially if you're the biggest Superman fan in the world. I think you're going to compare it against what you think of as the best. And for me, it's the Christopher Reeve. I'm not even a huge fan of Superman 2. I really love Superman 1 just because it had this magical aspect to it, magical quality. It looked larger than life, but it was still kind of grounded.
Yeah.
So that, like with the FF, the cool thing, obviously you'd mentioned, is that in many people's eyes, The Incredibles was like the perfect Fantastic Four movie, and that a lot of people talked about it even in comics when Incredibles came out back in the earlier 2000s. It's like, wow, this is like the Fantastic Four. This is the aesthetic that you'd want in a Fantastic Four movie. And so the new movie really does kind of fulfill that. And it's crazy in a way because Michael Giacchino does the soundtrack, and he did The Incredibles. And it has that same kind of feel. It vibes on like the 60s that, would be the future 60s kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
just
I keep saying like Disneyland's Tomorrowland.
well, it is. Yeah. It's
And it has those kind of
yeah.
touches of flying cars and
Yeah.
but also the all the analog years, the pre-digital years of technology and everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, all the elements. Obviously, Herbie the robot wasn't part of my childhood reading, but Herbie had a purpose in the movie, and it was fun.
Big redemption for Herbie. I completely agree.
I mean, in a way, I guess what humor was in the Fantastic Four was always Thing and the Thing
Johnny.
and the Human Torch.
Yep.
Right. They were always like trying to one up each,
swiping at each other. Sure.
Johnny giving the Thing a hot foot or whatever.
Right.
Those type of things.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought that in the movie itself that Johnny was really well realized. Sue Storm was well. I mean, I like Pedro Pascal. I think they all had very specific personality that made sense for those characters, in live action. So,
completely agree. Absolutely. No, and really, I was a little nervous. But, you hear hype before a movie, and it's like, oh, they're going to take away Johnny being a horn dog, and it's like, okay, whatever. Johnny was fine. And also they gave him even more and interesting things to do.
Yeah.
And I liked the way they used Johnny in the movie. Yeah. But no, you're right. The relationships between the four, you got that sense of family.
Yeah.
There are a lot of touching scenes between Reed and Sue. Johnny and Ben feel like Johnny and Ben. I know some people miss the almost Jimmy Durante kind of, hey, come on, fellas, kind of thing with the Thing. I didn't mind that.
I didn't either.
I thought he was great, and really, no, all four of them were terrific. Yeah. And Galactus was realized in the best possible way.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I as a comic fan, to see the Galactus done as the comics did them. I mean, I got strong. I mean, again, there's strong Kirby vibes, but there's strong Byrne vibes in there too. Like
sure.
In some of the scenes in the Galactus's ship type of thing, there were these tubular kind of mechanisms that were definitely Byrne kind of constructs, Byrne by taking Kirby and making it so it had the Kirby doodads on it, but a lot of that just gave me that Byrne vibe. And I like the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer was not one dimensional. I thought that again that was. And here's a funny thing. I was trying to make, why is this, was it Matt Shackman or something? Why is that name familiar? It was like Matt had done the Scarlet Witch.
Right. WandaVision. Yeah.
WandaVision. Yeah. And that had that kind of feel too, retro kind of feel.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he captured that really well. So he was a good choice, I think.
I agree. Absolutely. Hey, Vito Del Sante joining us in the chat.
Hey, Vito.
He's got a very personal message for you. Jerry, I've been carrying your Modern Bastards in my backpack for 2 years. Please come back to Baltimore.
Well, Baltimore, they didn't invite me formally, and I decided I wasn't going to go out of my way. I really, honestly, I mean, I go to shows, I enjoy the shows, but I could do without them. You know what I mean? It's not like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I really do, buddy.
You have to get set up and go drive somewhere or fly somewhere. I don't,
When my radio comparison is the auto show every year, and when Comic-Cons become like the chore that the auto show was for me as a radio broadcaster, that's when I have to stop going to comic conventions. I haven't reached that point yet. I still enjoy it, but I understand the grind, and also
I enjoy it too. I think that the difference is, in the old days, you would go to a show, or I would go to a show, and I didn't worry about having to bring like all my wares to sell. I would just go, I'd show up, I'd sign books. Anybody who wanted a signature, do a quick sketch on something. It was not a deal, Yeah. Now it feels like, I mean, financial reality is you want to come back with something out of the show because it costs you to go, it costs you to eat. But it's not what I got into comics for,
I hear you, man. No, I absolutely hear you.
And Baltimore is a great show. Heroes Con's another great show. I haven't been to either of them. Baltimore was, I think, in 2022. So I think 2022 might have been the last Baltimore. Heroes Con, I went 2017, 18, and 19, and then haven't gone since. But that one's a long drive.
Sure.
And again, I talked to all my friends about this. It's like, how do you bring your stuff? And they're like, they either pay for another suitcase or they have to ship stuff. And I just don't want to do that. It's just,
Get it. I totally get it. Yeah. No, it's tough. And plus deadlines,
I always, again, it's like you have to, if you picture it for years, well, back in the DC days, really, I always had, if as much signing as I wanted to do, I'd volunteer. I'd sign at the DC booth. I didn't have to go to Artist Alley. I generally didn't do that from about 1990, maybe 89 or whatever. I hadn't sketched for money until maybe 2012. So
wow.
It was a long stretch when I wasn't charging. I just do quick sketches.
Sure.
But I would go to a show. I had a Sharpie and maybe a silver marker in my pocket, and I was free.
Yeah.
Walk around.
Yeah, that's all the equipment you needed.
I could
Absolutely.
walk around and talk to the other artists, friends of mine. I could hang out with them. It wasn't like I was stuck at a table for a whole day or 3 days. So, it's a different thing because it's always a social thing for any comic creator. I think it's social in that you see people that you've known for years, or you meet people. Oh, this guy, like, meeting. Well, actually, he was thinking about I think it was Baltimore. You talk about Evan Shaner. I knew Evan a little bit through emails or through online stuff, but I don't think I actually met him until I think I met him at maybe it was Heroes Con. But again, Tom King I met at Baltimore. First time I was at Baltimore was at the banquet. He was at our table and he won all the awards. Him and Mitch Gerads.
Funny.
Like getting up and it was cool. I was happy. I mean, I'm happy when people win awards.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's cool. I'm a big cheerleader for comics. I still buy them. I still read them. I'm happy when people are successful.
I do. I always think, and you were there, Jer. You introduced me one night at Terrificon, and it was you, Brett Breeding, and Barry Kitson.
Oh, right.
And I completely lost my mind with Kitson because I'm such a fan of him and Wade together. And Brett Breeding's like, "Hey, I killed Doomsday. Back off. Why? How come you're not talking to me?" I'm like, "But you don't understand, Barry Kitson. Jesus, I love this guy."
Yeah,
I get it, man.
I think it's fun. I mean, the fun part about doing comics, as long as I've done them, is that, again, I had my group of friends that we all got into comics around the same time, Jurgens and Eric Larson and people like that. But in the early days, it was like, oh, cool, I just got to meet Jim Mooney, or I got to meet Murphy Anderson, or Kurt Swan, or Gil Kane, or those were the things. And then as you get older, it's like in the 90s, it's like, oh, I'm meeting the new guys, oh, that's really cool. And people would be surprised that I knew their work. And I'd be like, well, I'm still reading comics. I still like this stuff, But then I was surprised when I, like meet Gil Kane, and Gil Kane knew my work. It's like, what's Gil Kane doing looking at my work? But, you just don't think of it. But these people are also trying to keep fresh. So they're looking at what's coming out,
Yeah, to stay contemporary, 100%. My God.
Jerry Siegel knew my work when I signed with at the DC.
Wow.
It was 84 or 85 at the San Diego Con, signing with him side by side. And there's Julie Schwartz on that side and Jerry Siegel. And I said, oh, I was a big, big fan, and I had a copy of my All-Star Squadron that had the Superman cover. It was kind of like a tribute cover or whatever, but it was when I was penciling the book, I said, I don't ever ask for this, but would you mind signing this for me? And he was like, sure. And he opened it up. He said, yeah, I really like the way you drew Superman. And I was like, oh, cool. He said, and then we corresponded through the mail for years.
Wow.
And then we saw him again I think it was when we did we were at the Lois and Clark TV show filming the pilot. They had a big dinner that for the production, and also Jerry Siegel and Joanne. So it was like a big group, all the comic guys that got to go. Plus it was in Jerry Siegel and Joanne's honor. And it was at the restaurant that's in the movie Get Shorty. I don't know if you remember the movie where John Travolta trips James Gandolfini down the stair.
Yeah.
This same restaurant. It was a really nice place, very trendy. But it was cool because then, Jerry Siegel was reading and following what we were doing on the Superman books.
Wow.
You know, Mike Carlin would send them, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up. Here's a storyline we're planning on doing. We don't want you to be blindsided, but you know, you did Death of Superman in a couple of stories, and we're doing our own take on it." And he was like, "Go for it, guys. Everything's great." You know, he had problems with DC.
Yes.
But he didn't let that affect his feelings towards us, you know, and towards the people doing Superman. You know, as long as you got it right, he was good.
That's
and he
really
thought
cool.
we got it right. So that was like a real it was kind of special.
I can only imagine. Absolutely,
yeah.
man. No, I briefly met Jerry Robinson, and
He's a great guy.
Kicking myself that I didn't have the extra $100 to get a Batman or Joker sketch from him with those last couple of years that he was doing it still.
Yeah,
but
I spent several conventions with him in '89, the Batman year. The movie came out, and he and I were doing a lot of side-by-side signings with DC at the booth, Chicago, San Diego, and Atlanta that year. And Jonathan Peterson, a friend of mine who's editor at DC, Jonathan and I were hanging out with Jerry Robinson the whole time, and he was like, "You guys got to come up. You know, I have a place." It's like he had like a summer cottage in Danbury. He said, "You're in Connecticut. You should come up some weekend." And I always felt like, you know, I can't. I feel like I was imposing on him, so I never took him up on it. And I always regret that because I think he made it a genuine, you know, overture. And I just didn't know how to deal with it, you know. But yeah, he was really nice, and he had great stories. And again, like we heard all the Steranko history of comics stories that he'd shared, but with added details, obviously, that weren't in publication. And they were very funny, you know, being stuck in New York during this huge blizzard and like peeling the tiles off the bathroom, like using whatever knives or something to peel tiles off. And then they heated the tiles up so that they could cook eggs, because they were able to, somebody trudged out in the snow to the diner that was closing, and they were able to buy a dozen eggs and brought them back because they were on deadline. Yeah. None of them could get home because the trains weren't running. So they basically boiled coffee on, they used like a little, he said they actually, they started a little fire on the tile floor, and they set up these tiles to act as hot plates. So they cooked eggs on these tiles, and they boiled coffee and stuff. And it's like, you hear this stuff and you think, that's kind of cool. That would make a good movie moment, you know?
Oh my God, yes. And I have heard that story before, but it's a wonderful story. I'm glad you're sharing it with my audience, because truly, no, it is an amazing, and the fact that they were able to burn through and make that, you know, that book and everything.
He also said they had their office space, the office space that they had, it was the alley. And he said the building doesn't exist anymore, but back in the 40s, it was the back of Radio City Music Hall. It was basically the back alley, or the area where people loaded in. And he said all the dancers would come out for cigarette breaks or whatever. They would sit, and he said they all, like, you know, high testosterone males that they were at the time. They immediately, when they saw it was lunchtime, everybody took a break and went outside and just hung and talked to the dancers, you know.
How you doing, Rockette? Nice to meet you. Absolutely.
It's just funny. There were he had a lot of good stories about stuff like that.
That's outstanding. Steve Commander wants to know, he loved Power of Shazam, was wondering if you had plans for the other Faucet heroes. The new history of the DC universe makes me want to see them together on a team.
Oh, I mean, the problem was there was really no, I would say, from a commercial point of view, DC didn't really want to exploit them because they didn't think that people would buy Bullet Man or Spy Smasher. I actually tried pitching an idea. I didn't write it up as a full thing, but I tried getting some interest in doing Spy Smasher, because in the 90s, I was like, well, you know, it's Spy Smasher. It's not like it's a war thing, but there's industrial espionage. In that era, everybody was talking about like China and stealing, you know, manufacturing secrets or whatever. I said, that's spy stuff. You could definitely, you know, transpose the concept in a modern era at that time. And they just didn't see the commercial aspects to it, which I get. Yeah. It would have been fun. That would have been fun. I had plans, and I tried to develop some of those characters within the Shazam book, like Minuteman, Bullet Man, and Bullet Girl. I mean, I if the book had continued, I definitely would have continued using them. Because I like the idea. At one point, I thought it would have been fun to do them as a group, kind of like an Avengers.
Yeah.
You know, because they were basically, here's your 6 Faucet characters. You had, you know, some of them weren't like any great shakes, like Pinky and Scarlet or whatever. Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Scarlet and Pinky, absolutely.
I mean, you know, but it's all what you do with them. You know,
of course.
I mean, the dopiest sounding stuff can be fun, and you can find a hook for anything and make it fun. You know.
Oh, Jared, I'm sure you would have been great doing a solo Red Bee, as we were making fun of him earlier and stuff.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely.
Yeah,
Vito had another comment real fast. He says, I'm going out of my way to be at a show with you in the next year. We still need to do that Golden Guard cover.
Yeah, we talked about that a while ago.
Is that one of his characters, I'm assuming?
Yeah, he does. He's doing his. I think I met Vito at New York Con, probably. And
he's a buddy of Dino's. I know that.
Yeah. No, he sent me his book, or at the time his comic. So it was good. I don't know what. I think we haven't seen each other at shows because I haven't been to New York either. You know.
No, it happens. Steve says thank you. Rob Liefeld says really nice things about you on his show, and I can attest to that as well. Observations, yes.
Yeah, I know.
So.
I've talked about knowing somebody since he was a kid. I mean, I think I met Rob when he was probably, I want to say 14, 15.
Sure.
You know, in the Teen Titan fan club, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob and Hank Canals and their friend Charlene Sy. I don't remember C or Sy, but the 3 of them were just kids, and we hung out at one of the, I think at a Houston or Dallas show back in 85, I think it was. It could have been 86, but yeah, the first time I met him. I even did, I did like, I think maybe you talked about it last time. I don't know. Rob had said, oh, I'm doing my own comic, Youngblood. And would you possibly be able to ink a cover for me? And it was him and Hank Canals.
Uh-huh.
And I said, sure. And I was working on a monthly book. You really don't have downtime. And the cover shows up, and it's a wraparound cover with a gazillion characters. It was very much, Rob was in his George Perez phase. It was very busy. And I'm looking at this going, wow, this is like, I said I would do this as a favor. I spent a couple days inking it, right? And then unfortunately, I don't think it ever was published in that era.
Okay.
I think Rob wound up doing, because he maybe felt guilty, he did some kind of a print of it or something. But I always felt like, oh, you should reprint that when you're doing Youngblood for Image.
Yeah.
He ever did. But it was fun. I mean, and they were all like, you know, all high enthusiasm. And that's cool, you know? I mean, I go to my local comic store and I see somebody who's really passionate about some comic, or I'll ask them, I said, what are you guys reading? And I get good recommendations. Sometimes I like the stuff. Sometimes it's like, okay. But I'm going to segue into Revival, which is now on Sci-Fi.
Talk to me about Revival. I'm so glad you're watching it too, Jer.
Norton and Seeley. I picked up that book on a recommendation. It was already starting to come out as trades, but a couple of teenage high school kids were regulars at the Cave Comics. I was like, well, what are you guys reading? You know, because again, I'm old. I know my kids were reading, but it was stuff that I would buy for them, you know, a lot of manga and stuff.
Sure.
So they were like, oh, really like Revival. That's a great book. And so I picked up the first, and then I bought the whole series in trade form. I loved it. So I'm really happy to see it as a show. And I don't remember, I mean, again, I read the comics years ago. So a lot of it, it's like, I think that was in the comic. It was, I mean, it clearly was a good enough concept for them to make a pretty involved TV show out of. And it's definitely, if you're not watching it, it's on Peacock. If you don't have Sci-Fi or whatever, Peacock is running like one episode a week. I think they're
Right.
up to 5 or 6 now.
That's right.
Yeah. It's
No,
good.
it's excellent. It's
Yeah.
and I mean, I've known the guys for as long as I've been doing Word Balloon, 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're local guys here.
Yeah.
And also I had the showrunners on, the TV
Oh, cool.
showrunners, and they get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's very evident from the TV show.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy for all 4 of them, the showrunners and Mike
Yeah.
and Tim.
Yeah. And
No,
they got
it's-
a great cast. I mean, it's definitely,
Yes.
it's been intriguing. Again, I was hesitant to go reread the books because I was like, well, I don't want to spoil it, because that's the beauty of, you read something and 5 years later, it's like, I think I remember where this is going, and then you're totally surprised. So it's
Yeah. No, it's great. It's excellent. And you're right. No, it's a great cast. I inadvertently, before the show started, was watching Jag. I had never watched Jag.
Oh, so yeah,
And it's the sheriff,
Right. Why
Melanie
does he look
Scrofano's dad.
yeah,
Yeah, he's the guy from Jag. Yeah.
yeah. I was,
No.
I definitely looked at. I was like, why is he familiar? I had to. It's funny. My daughter gives me a hard time. She's joking, but I always go on my iPad for the Internet Movie Database, or as she calls it, the Internet Movie Dad-base, because it's like I'll be watching something. It's like, that person looks familiar. Where did I see them before? And I look it up, and it's like, oh, I watched them in a show 5 years ago that ran for 1 season or something.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's cool. The show's got a good cast. I like the little twists and stuff, and I don't want to spoil it by rereading. But the book
I don't
was
blame
good. If
No,
you
I
get
don't-
anybody who's watching this or listening to this, that definitely check out Revival. And the other one that was good in a similar theme, and now I'm gonna blank on the title of it. It was the Strangers in Paradise guy, Terry Moore.
Yeah, Terry Moore, yeah.
And it was about a dead girl comes back to life. It ran for, I have the several volumes of that.
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah,
either,
I can't think of it, but yeah, it's fun. And again, I like when, stuff like that kind of comes out of nowhere in a sense. It doesn't have to be from Marvel and DC. It's all about the idea,
Yeah. No, I completely agree about all of that. And no, I'm enjoying the TV show, and I'm glad. Like I said, I'm happy as hell for Mike and Tim.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
it's a really cool thing. The have you watched Nautilus? The new.
Not yet. I heard about it before it was on. I think the guy at the comic store had seen it on some streaming service before it was on Amazon.
It's on AMC, and AMC
okay.
Plus is the streamer that it's on.
Yeah. He had seen it on something, and he was telling me about it, and I was like, "Well, that sounds good," but I have not seen it yet. No.
Okay, I like it. I gotta say.
I just watched Sandman, and
the new season.
Yeah, the new season of Sandman. I like. I think it's well done. I was not a huge reader of the book. I read like specific certain issues here and there. I've always been like, if I like the artist, I'll go out of my way to read it. And with Sandman, I was always a little, maybe like, I wasn't a huge Sam Keith fan, and I know he was doing so. I didn't dislike it. It just wasn't like, compelling. Like if I found anything that Russ Heath drew, for example, even if it was like he was illustrating the phone book or something, I would seek it out.
Sure.
John Severin, whatever. So I've always felt like that artist wise, that something has to appeal, and then I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
But I was going to say, comic wise, one of the best things I've read recently has been the Black Widow Best of the Best. Not Black Widow,
Black Canary.
The Best of the Best thing.
Yeah, the Tom King thing. Yeah.
I think Ryan Sook's best work. I mean, he's great, but that was phenomenal work. That was a great miniseries.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
No, it was excellent. Tom threw me and our buddy Mike Cronenberg in as the boxing commentators. It didn't look like me.
Yeah, it didn't look like you, but I was thinking, like, I think you're represented in there.
I am indeed, which is very nice, and it cracked me up. So yeah, pretty crazy.
But
yeah,
I was gonna say, like, I that was another one that I had missed when it came out, and a friend of mine, Brian Morris, had said, "Oh, that you should read that. That one's really good." He said, "I think that's my favorite Tom King," and I'm like, I like Tom King stuff, anyways, but for some reason, maybe the store, it must have been a week that I just blanked on it. So I went and I wasn't able to get issue 1. I think I bought issue like 2, 4, 5 or something. And then I eventually filled in and had all 6 or 5. Is it 6?
I think it's 5, but I could
5,
be wrong.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if not, it's 5 or 6, definitely.
Yeah. So I did fill in, and I finally got to read the whole thing from start to finish. So I really enjoyed it. But yeah, but I read a lot of comics, you know,
No,
probably more so since COVID. I would just let them stack up. And then when COVID hit, I just kind of went, you know, it's kind of annoying that I'm putting these things in boxes because they've piled up so high. I'm never going to read them. So I just started going through and reading stuff, you know, and I've stuck with it. So for the last 5 years, I've been reading monthly books. Maybe I'm probably 2 weeks behind my stack, you know, but I do keep current with stuff. So
that's great.
Yeah.
James was wondering if you draw digitally now.
No.
Attaboy.
I mean, I do editing and stuff in Photoshop. I can color digitally and do all that stuff. I like working on paper. I mean, to me, it's not even about. I don't hate the technology. I just like the idea of. Well, you know, I mean, it's like I'm a factory worker and I need to make a widget every day or something. You know, I feel a sense of accomplishment when I see something sitting there. If I do it on the computer, I don't feel that same sense.
I get it.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
I can appreciate that. No,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. Well, you know, Jared, we've been going 2 hours, but I mean, you know, I don't know. I know. Well, and that's the thing. It's 10 o'clock your time, and I love talking to you. And again, it's an excuse to have you back sooner than later, obviously. Do you have anything else coming up? Like we said, History of DC Universe is out, Volume 1. But yeah, anything else?
Yeah, I had my Superman movie cover. I had the JSA number 7 had a variant. I don't think I have anything coming up. I got offers for stuff, and I just said I want to take the summer because I feel like I was usually in the spring, I'm always working outside, and there were so many things I needed to do around the house, and I was busy on deadline. I was really cursing it. So like, I want to take and enjoy the rest of the summer. I don't want to think about work until September or whatever. So I put people off. And it's, you know, because I'm not doing as much. The less you do, the less you want to do, in a sense. I still want to compete. I still like the idea of having stuff come out, but you know, it's easy to get sidetracked and like instead go out and cut a tree down or something stupid.
Yeah, but that's all right. You can take it a little easier. But hey, and I am glad to hear that you still want to get at it.
Yeah.
And hopefully the right project will come up, and you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do wish, again, it's like when something strikes my fancy, I think about it. But I don't actively seek it out. You know, I was thinking about that because I generally wait. Someone comes to me and it's like, oh, sure, I'll do the history of the DC universe. You know what I mean? I didn't seek it out.
Was it fun? At least.
It was gratifying. It's hard to do anything like that because not only finding reference, even getting supplied reference, it's like, I don't think that's right. Because all the editors are young.
Yeah.
And they're grabbing
stuff. When you say that, that they were getting it wrong in terms of the reference.
They were kind of requesting to do a pencil. I don't do pencils. So I did like a layout type of thing with the characters. And if there was a problem with the costume or what I did, then at least they had a way to look at it before I went to finish something. And then, you have to change this. Because there were some weird things in the beginning because the time frame, I'm starting with the beginning of the universe.
Yes.
So it's like wrapping my brain around, okay, the Dark Stars are in it, but it's not the Dark Stars that were in the comics. So I'm like, you didn't really make that clear. They're clearly not immortals. So I had to change something. By the time I got to finish, it was like create different creatures or non-humanoids or whatever. And then a few things like that would pop up. So it's fun to accomplish it. But when I was on a deadline, all I could think of was 15 pages and it's due by, initially I think the deadline was the beginning of May or something, or the end of April, and I hadn't gotten started as soon as I was hoping because the script went through stuff. So, I mean, it's the added pressure. And once you're done with it, or you finish a page and you're getting closer, then you start maybe lightening up a little bit, because all I think about is I don't want to blow a deadline, And again, it was weird. It was a weird thing because they were not panels, but as I was approaching my pages, I was looking at, like, Todd Knock did a really cool job with his pages, but I was noticing his pages, he was approaching them much differently. Like, he was approaching them a little more like collage. And I was like, I'm looking at this as, if I have to reference these characters, clearly somebody is going to use this book as reference for those characters if they have to draw them. So I want to make sure that the characters aren't just heads, but that you show them in body with the costume detail so that someone can refer to it. Because it feels like a lot of work otherwise if it's not useful to somebody down the line.
Agreed.
So I was trying to approach it that way, and ultimately, tried to figure out the copy. Where's the copy going to go that leave enough room, and have some kind of flow. If there's ultimately 4 panels, they're not really panels. One bleeds into the next, but it, so it was more of a almost like a less of a storytelling, but it was more of like a layout challenge or whatever. But yeah, it was fun. And again, I got to draw characters. It's always interesting to be in comics this long and draw characters for the first time.
Yeah. Who would you draw for the first time?
Well, I mean, I don't think I drew Congarilla before.
Okay.
Or
sure.
Congo Bill.
Sure.
Like I said, I look back when I was inking the Crisis thing of Perez.
Yeah.
Like, well, clearly I inked some of these characters in Crisis.
Right.
But there's less of an impact when you're inking something as opposed to penciling it.
Sure. That's cool. Did you talk much with Mark? How did you go about collaborating with Mark on the history issue?
He wrote a script, and the main thing was if I had some thought on something, I could bring it up, but it was just through email.
Okay.
And he approved everything. All the layout stuff would be submitted to him if he had, like, oh, this is a different version of the character, or you need to do this. I mean, they were very specific about it, which was good. And it was helpful that he was that knowledgeable, because, I feel like that kinship, because you want to get it right. But I found it fascinating. Again, we were talking about every few years you do need to retell, because I think it does enhance the reading quality of a book if it has some callback to here's what happened in 1942 or in 1692 or whatever it is. It's good to have some kind of basis for that, because writers can write to it. They can write knowing about it, but the reader can read it and go, oh, this is, in the new history of the DC universe, this happened, whatever. So that's all fun, and that's very immersive continuity stuff that I just love. So it was kind of fun. I knew Wade would be he's clearly the guy to do it, but yeah, we did. It was just, there wasn't like interaction. I haven't really seen him at a show for a little bit. Maybe walked past him and said hi at Terrificon, but I think
last year we were all together. That's right. Yeah. But
yeah, you don't. I mean, generally you just work in your place, and I scan a page or I scan my layout, and you wait for an editor or somebody to get back to you. So it's not the same as like the old days when you're on the phone with somebody, or it's almost all done through email,
Yeah, I hear you, man. Stephen is gushing about the Justice Alliance, and we were gushing about it earlier, Stephen, and we agree with you. He's like, I'd love to see a monthly with those guys. I hear you, man.
Well,
absolutely.
Tiger Man was one I'd never heard of. And the reference they gave me was from a My Greatest Adventure comic. And I was like, wow, this is a deep cut. So it's fun. And Automan too. I mean, Automan, I remember from the Who's Who, because I remember when I saw the entry, I was like, that looks just like Robot Man from the Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
So,
well, or even your guys, didn't you guys have a Robot Man as well in All-Star?
We had the original Robot Man. He was kind of like metal colored rather than gold.
Right, like gold. Yeah.
It was interesting. So like Comet Man, very specific, but again, the Cougar guy was like, that's a new one. And I got to respect whoever, whether it was Wade or somebody else pulled that one out of a hat. That's like a deep cut, you know?
Well, and I wondered because Stephen mentioned Ultra. I mean, I'm assuming he means the multi-alien. I didn't know if he was in the group or not, but I don't know if you ever had a chance to ever draw Ultra. It was only in a couple.
I don't think so. I don't remember. That was the guy that had the multiple. Yeah,
yeah. His arms and legs were all different alien things.
Right,
yes.
right. Yeah, no, on the pages I did towards the end where I did like a montage kind of the war characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that interesting because in that case I had a lot of the books because I was a big John Severin fan and I was a big Russ Heath fan and a Kubert fan. So I just pulled out my box of war comics and found what I needed. But there was a little bit of a hiccup over the Haunted Tank because the Haunted Tank is they're haunted by a general who fought for the South in the
That's
Civil
right, Jeb
War.
Stewart, the Confederate
So
general.
it's like,
That's
don't do too much, like don't do the flag, do this, which is cool. But then it was like, so I didn't do the flag, but then it was like, well, maybe we're thinking we have to eliminate the guy on the horse. And I'm like, but he's the guy haunting the tank.
Right. Yeah.
So I said, why don't you just do him as a color hold? Like in the old days, just pull him off the black plate, and it was like, that's how they did it. I'm glad they did it.
Yeah.
I think, again, you can't account for everything that was done in the past. There's some stuff that's politically incorrect.
100%.
But I always feel like, just like with movies, it's a teaching moment, right?
Yes.
It's like people smoked in the old days. God, everybody smoked, Oh my God. And people they were racist. They're still racist.
Ebony White in Will Eisner's Spirit, and Chaikin and I talked about Chop Chop in Black Hawk.
Oh yeah. Well, Steamboat's kind of worse in Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
But if you read anything from C.C. Beck, from C.C. Beck's perspective, they were showing representation. They were using an accepted stereotype as a way to not get the book banned in the South, but they felt like on the positive side, they had an African-American character. So it's it's like a complicated thing, but do you not reprint those because of that? Or do you just not color them the same? Like, in other words, don't make him look like he's in blackface.
I'm him.
Yes. So,
yes.
Because they always did the white lips and they made him look kind of pantomime.
Yeah, that vaudeville burlesque, if people don't know from a graphic standpoint. Yeah.
You could do it and just say, here's your teaching moment,
Yeah.
Yeah. And if this is also a sidetrack thing, but I'm fascinated by this because I love old movies and I started finding some stuff. I was watching Buster Keaton. I read his biography. Some really amazing biography came out a couple of years ago. And I started picking up whatever I could find of Buster Keaton because I'd never really experienced it before, but having the context of the story. And there's occasionally stuff in there that you go, well, that's probably politically not correct. But by the same token, I think in that day and age, there were people who were working. So, just like Asian actors playing a butler or playing a houseboy or whatever, they were represented, maybe not in the perfect prototype, but you watched the movie, you saw Asian people, you saw black people, you saw various, and when the reaction to not doing it is that then everything's all just white guys.
Right.
So
no, you're right, man.
It's the same thing I have this issue with when you and I were kids. Well, I'm older than you, but say the 70s was the heyday, late 60s, 70s, heyday of all the cop shows that were all filmed in Los Angeles. You can watch any one of those shows and it's a cross, it's everybody's represented.
Yes.
Some of them are stereotypes, some of them aren't. But I mean, everybody's represented because they filmed on the streets.
Yep.
They filmed with everybody around there. And once you start like picking apart, well, should these black guys always be pimps and whatever?
Yeah.
Clearly that's something that the writers and the producers can address. But in a way, they just eliminate them in a sense. It's like, well, what, you can't write a story that doesn't have a black person as a pimp or a hooker or something.
I hear what you're saying. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So, but
yes.
the reaction is then not to hire black actors or whatever it is. So I'd rather see a cross section of a real city.
Agreed.
Than to have somebody sanitize it because they're maybe worried about something, and I'm not saying that, like, I watched my share of Starsky and Hutch and Beretta and all those shows, and I never thought, oh, all black people are criminals. That's not what I got out of it. But I did get a sense that there were more than one color of people,
I hear you. Yeah.
So
you're right.
Like with comics, the same thing. There was so little representation in comics that you either had Japanese people as, stereotypes in World War II.
Right.
Or, then it became Chinese stereotypes when China was the enemy, and
during the Cold War, certainly.
Yeah. So you're always dealing with stereotypes, but it just seems worse to not represent people.
I'm with you, man.
Because it is, again, it's not a woke thing. It's not about any of it. It's about what's reality out there,
And and like you said, it's a teachable moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really glad that, and believe me, I know the problems with it, but like I was talking with Pornsak, P-Shot Show, and he's one of my favorite current writers.
Yeah.
And when he did The Good Asian, and we certainly obviously, and we talked about Charlie Chan and the Charlie Chan movies and everything. And it's a shame that Asian actors didn't play Chan. Thank God we did have Kay Luke and Victor Sen Young playing his sons. And then also Mantan Moreland, from a black perspective, he was the chauffeur, but also brilliant comedian.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I think black film historians, we embrace him and go, listen, like you said, thank God he was working. Thank God he was on a big stage and like Rochester on the Jack Benny show. And that's the thing. These guys became nationally popular,
right,
and thankfully had those platforms to do their stuff.
And I do think, like if you remember, well, you obviously remember the Charlie Chans. I mean, the thing that was always brilliant about it was that they would have the characters talking like a pidgin English only to white people, and then when they talked to each other, they were just talking normal.
Yes,
it was like, okay, that's a wink to the audience that they were actually playing to the people who were racist, who expected them to be like that. I find that, that's an actual interesting extra wrinkle in it. Yeah.
I'm with you. No, and also, and I always point this out again, I wish Asian guys played Charlie Chan. In fact, Kay Luke only did it in the cartoon, which is kind of ironic that was the one place, but also that he was the smartest guy in the room. Right. And the other cops were like, thank God you're here, Charlie. We don't know what the hell's going on right now. And it really was that kind of demonstrative, like, man, we're really glad you're here, Charlie, because we don't get it, you know. And it's like, all right, well, I'm here, and I'm the smartest guy in the room.
And here's another one. Not to be on a thing, but I grew up in Milwaukee. I grew up on the South Side, and we were maybe one of two white families in a Hispanic neighborhood, and that was our home. All my friends were, Mexican or Puerto Rican.
Sure.
And I never thought twice about it.
Of course not.
And I do feel like there's a group that's really not been represented well. And I mean, that was the impetus for Gangbuster in the Superman books, was that, they really, I feel like of all the, maybe they didn't have good lobbying or however it works, but I still feel like today they're demonized, because most of them are coming from other countries and even ones that are living here. But I always felt like that Hispanics weren't really represented well. And again, I'm not making policy or whatever, but I did feel like there was an aspect of fairness that seems like appropriate for Superman, or for superheroes or whatever. But
it was a great inclusion, and truly like this great street level hero, Jose Gangbuster.
And I never understood why it just disappeared. It was like I used him in Shazam because no one was using him after I left Superman. I was like, this guy dated Lois Lane for a period of time, and he was integral in that Jimmy Olsen's pal and all that stuff. It was just interesting, but I guess everybody also plays a little bit off of their own experience, just like I did, but
well, thankfully with Jaime Reyes and some of the other stuff that's happening right now, Jessica Cruz in the Green Lantern world and everything.
Yeah.
So it's gotten better. Thank God it's gotten better.
Yeah. But again, it's the type of thing that I think of in fairness, because when you go to shows, you meet everybody. And again, it's just like everybody finds something in a character. But I remember reading this and it totally made sense to me. And I'd been doing it before I read this, but it was the idea that everybody wants to see themselves represented somehow. And that's totally valid. If you're, you don't want to, if you're Polish, you don't want to be represented as a stupid guy and everything. If you're Hispanic, you don't want to be a gangbanger and everything. I mean, it feels like you want to, every kid deserves a hero, and that's always been the cool thing to me about comics is that even in the absence of that, I was thinking of Walter Mosley, the writer, talking about The Thing, and The Thing was like an icon for him.
Wow.
It's like it makes total sense because there's not a black character in there necessarily before the Black Panther.
Right.
But The Thing was kind of an outcast. He looked different. He always wanted to be normal, whatever. So, I mean, it's fascinating how this goofy fiction stuff that we like so much is inspirational, at its core. It really is. And that's the cool thing about going to shows when I talk too much to everybody, but everybody gets the same excess conversation. I enjoy hearing about people's lives, what they do, how they got into comics, all that stuff. I'm fascinated by it because I know how I did, I mean, everybody's got their story about what made them superheroes appealing to them or whatever. So that's the cool part about comics. And I do feel like truly that is the stuff that binds everybody together, even though everybody likes different stuff. There's a communal feeling to it, especially like the idea of a superhero. It's not old fashioned, I mean, everybody still likes the idea of justice. They just maybe don't see it in practice as much as they'd like. But I think that was probably true in the 30s and clearly why Superman was created.
100%.
Yeah. So,
and really my one small disappointment in Daredevil Born Again was we didn't get more of Hector Ayala as the White Tiger in action. Yeah. And all we saw, unfortunately, was him losing and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, that's too bad because, and I noticed, I happened to see Marvel Solicits coming up and I noticed they're going to do they're going to do a White Tiger. And then certainly they're going to lean on the legacy character his sister becomes the White Tiger, but also they are going to reprint some of George's stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
from his days.
Wasn't that in the Kung Fu magazine or something? Yeah.
Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. You're damn right.
I still have mine. They're in the basement. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I remember
good stuff, man. No, great stuff. No, I love that whole Marvel 70s and the black and white magazines and stuff. I loved Doc Savage and the Dracula stuff.
That stuff was great. But boy, for a fan, you really had to scrape some nickels together. It was
true.
It was hard to keep up with because I was a Marvel maniac. I had to have everything.
Really? All right, there you go. See, I was more pick and choose. As Steve Commander says, the Sons of the Tiger too. Absolutely, man.
Yeah. But I mean, Marvel nearly broke me when they started reprinting the 50s stuff. The horror stuff.
Where monsters
I was
dwell.
like, I would be like, I can't keep up with all of this. I'm gonna have to pick and choose. I just can't afford
it. I understand, man. No, I 20 cent is when I was starting to buy comics. I know you're a little older and everything, but And
I remember 12. So 12 is what I remember.
I remember seeing 12, but I was too little. And then when I started getting my 50 cent allowance, it was 20 cents.
Yeah.
So I'd have 2 comics a week and a pack of baseball cards, and I was happy.
So, well, you'd have to find time or find at least 15 cents to buy a Coke or a Pepsi from a machine in a bottle. Ice cold in the summer when you're sweating your butt off.
Oh, God, yeah. Or you go in the grocery store because that's the only air-conditioned place and everything.
Well, that's what we went to movies.
Right.
It's like escape the heat. Ice cold air conditioning.
That was the big selling point during the Depression. Absolutely, man. And that's when people would walk in the middle of movies, and you know, the younger generations never. I mean, I never understood that. My aunts and uncles and grandparents were, you know, they didn't care if it was the middle of the movie. Let's go see what's playing. Okay.
Yeah, I was a kid. My mom worked she had the tavern was open until 7 on Saturdays. So we would have dinner and then we would go at 8, but we'd be at the midpoint of a 7 o'clock showing, and we would watch the last half of the movie, and we would watch the first half, and then she would lean over and say, "This is where we came in," and we would leave. That was how I saw all these movies, until I finally started seeing stuff on myself. My brother and I would go by ourselves to see stuff. Like, wait, how do you see a movie in the reverse order? Because I remember the craziest one still to this day is seeing the parallax view.
Oh no,
which is a conspiracy movie. But we saw the ending first, you know, like the last half first, and then sat through the beginning, and it was like, okay, I mean, you know, clearly not the way to move. But you know, I'm sure Christopher Nolan's thrilled when people watch Oppenheimer on their iPhone. So you know,
that's a different world. Patton was the one that my sister and I. She was like, it was 1970. So I was like 5 and she was 10, and we went with our uncle, and our dad was supposed to meet us, and he was late closing his shift at the restaurant bar,
right.
And he came halfway. We stayed through the whole movie. Then we stayed for a second showing halfway through, and then our dad came halfway through, and he's like, "Do you mind if we watch till the point?" So we sat through 3 showings of Patton, and we swore to each other we'd never see the movie again because it was so traumatic as 5 and 10-year-olds. I finally broke it in the early 2000s. I'm like, Pam, it's a classic. I have to see it. I really have to see it.
It's like what is it? Close to 3 hours?
Close to 3 hours, absolutely. Yeah. But you know, Franklin Schaffner, great director.
No, great one.
What's his face? Coppola wrote the script.
Yeah.
You know, and George C. Scott played his, you know, and Carl Malden. It's a great movie. It is a great movie. Maybe not for a 5-year-old.
I would say so. Planet of the Apes came out in 68.
Yep.
And I would have been, depending on when it came out, if it was at the end of 68, I would have been 10 or 11. So
okay. All right.
That was the most mind-blowing, amazing thing to see as a kid, because my aunt took us, and you know, like, she was always the cool aunt because she took us to see, you know, when the Beatles movies were, she was taking us to see them.
Great.
Too. But seeing the Planet of the Apes was like, oh my God, it was probably like people when they saw Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight, you know, there was probably that groundbreaking. That's what Planet of the Apes was. It was just like, it felt serious. It was, you know, wasn't hokey. It looked cool. I mean, all the way through. So that was a big movie moment for me. And I remember that very vividly, seeing that downtown Milwaukee at I think it was the Warner Theater on Wisconsin Avenue with my aunt.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
No,
you know,
when that ape first shows up through the cornfields and you see that ape on horseback with a rifle, that is, and especially on a big screen, that's an impressive shot, everybody. Yeah. That's a big screen moment.
The one that got me was when he finds his we're doing spoilers for a really old movie. when Charlton Heston's character finds his shipmate, you know, the co-captain, whatever, and he's got the big scar on his forehead, the lobotomy
scar. Yeah.
I was like, oh man.
No, it was disturbing movie. Really, the first 5 movies. Well, the 5th one was a little tamer. Battle, but they're dark. The first 4 are dark movies.
So Patton, you're 5 in 70.
I was born in December of 64.
Okay. So
and it's funny. I was telling Liefeld, because I'm like, you know, Rob, I think I'm too young to be considered a boomer, but I feel too old to be considered a Gen X.
Right.
And he's like, well, you know, the last month of boomers is December of 64. And I'm like, all right, so I'm December 2nd. I'm like, so 29 days, and I would have been the oldest Gen Xer, basically.
There you go. Yeah. Well, it's like being on the cusp of being a Sagittarian.
Yes, literally. Are you also on the cusp as well, or?
Well, I was born in at the end of November, and so I'm like towards the end of Sagittarian. I'm closer to the next thing, and I remember people who were born earlier in the month who were Sagittarians were like, "You're not a real Sagittarian." And it was like, why? Oh, you're not as
Well,
careful.
then I must not be either, because I'm
Whatever.
after, yeah, because I'm at the end of Sagittarius too, technically.
Oh yeah.
So, but
So
no,
when's
that's
your-
hilarious.
When's your birthday?
December 2nd.
Oh yeah, so we're close. Yeah, it's like you're on the cusp of Capricorn, right?
Right.
Yeah, and Capricorns have such a different, So I'm definitely, I have some of the Sagittarian, but I have some of the controlled, aspects of the Capricorn. It's just funny to think about it. I have someone I knew who was really into it. They track it to the position of the stars when you were born, and that there's a I don't know. It's fun whether it's it's not. Well, it's a science in its own way, but it's maybe not a verifiable science.
Earlier this week, I was having a bunch of technical difficulties, and a good friend of mine that really is into astrology back in the 90s taught me about Mercury being in retrograde.
Oh, right.
And I just wondered, because really, Jeremy Adams' conversation with me, Keith Williams, the Inker's conversation with me, and Bo Smith, there were technical difficulties on all three.
Oh, wow.
On all three, and I'm like, is Mercury in retrograde? And of course, it's in retrograde till the weekend of Terrificon.
Right.
So we're still in it.
Yeah.
So I'm
I think whatever I did a store appearance, and I read my horoscope that morning, and it said something about mechanical breakdowns because Mercury was in whatever
in retrograde. Yeah.
I'm not going to think about this later because I'll probably make it come true.
Jared, I swear, when I read it, and especially given that it's going to be through Terrificon, I'm like, I don't need to know this. Please, why did I look this up? Okay, I'll be fine. Everything will be fine. Oh God, you're killing me, Jared. Honestly, this has been great. And everybody, pick up the DC, the history of the DC universe. And
also, the only thing I can verifiably plug is that DC is, I think last month they started early solicitations for the remastered Crisis omnibus that I think is not shipping until February.
Okay.
So that's the one that's got the me inking that Perez poster that Alex Ross did a beautiful job painting. And Alex gave us a blessing. He said, just as long as it's colored traditional comic style, not painted style. I mean, George's style comes through on it. So, it's me inking George 40 years later,
That's beautiful, man.
So that's I think that's a selling point. And there's like having good files with all the overlays intact. Those hardcovers haven't had that ever. So it'll at least look like the comic came out in the 80s,
That's beautiful, man.
And that's been a crusade of mine. So
no, it's a great moment as an inker for you, and I remember it well. And also, I'm really glad we brought up your John Byrne FF work as well. That's cool. And of course, great Shazam talking and just DC history in general. Dude, I always enjoy our conversations.
I have stories.
And thank God, Jared, because truly, that's what I want to get, the straight story from guys like you. And that's what I try to do in my interviews is we all know the legends. We want the real story. So that's why when you have these great moments with Jerry Robinson and the like, it's great to hear. So I appreciate it. Yeah. So come back sooner than later.
Anytime.
All right, brother. Well, I'll probably bother you before the end of the year. But in the meantime, I'll see you at Terrificon in just a couple of weeks, the 8th through the 10th, everybody. Mohegan Sun, that's why we run the commercials here on Word Balloon. It's a fun show, and I'm doing a lot of panels. I don't know if Jerry and I are doing a panel or not, but I know
Mitch
regardless.
Doesn't even put me on panels anymore, so
okay.
I would be happy to do them.
Are you tabling next to Walter and Louise?
I have no clue. I never look at it until I show up and I go, okay,
where am I? Well, you're on one of those, usually on one of those end tables and everything, so that's cool. Yeah. But no, I'll be bugging you there. Don't worry about it. And
remember about Mercury in retrograde.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. Let's all fear Mercury in retrograde.
The wheel will fall off of your luggage bag or something.
God forbid. God forbid. The good, it's the best though is from the airport to the casino. Invariably, Juergens and I end up in the same limo.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's great. And truly, like the first, and thank God now we've gotten to know each other. Right. So I'm like, Dan, I hope I'm not like bugging you because it's like an hour long, like ride
it's a long drive. Yeah.
And it's like, and he's like, no, John, I like talking to you. I'm like, okay, good. Thank God. Okay, good. So no, it's gonna be fun, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Thanks for playing tonight, man. This
No
was
problem.
terrific. And see you soon. Folks, if everything works out, Al Milgram and I are recording tomorrow afternoon. And so I'll be presenting that talk to you in the days ahead here on Word Balloon. And then Sunday night, Jerry's Power Cosmic or Cosmic Power. What's the name?
Cosmic.
The Power Cosmic podcast that Jerry co-hosts with Mitch Halleck himself, the man from Terrificon. Mitch and I will be discussing Fantastic Four more. And also we'll talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Cool.
So that's coming up on Sunday night here on Word Balloon Live. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.